You're listening to a very special Halloween episode of the Overcast, brought to you by Oversoul Gaming. Get your horror Halloween fix this year at Oversoul Gaming, with plenty of horror Let's Plays to watch, including Outlast, Resident Evil 7 in VR, and Bendy and the Ink Machine. Yes, Oversoul Gaming. If it's a horror game, we've probably played it. And now, your feature presentation. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to a very special Halloween episode of the Overcast. I am your host, Justin, aka Oversoul.
I am your co-host, Nick, aka the Vaping Fiend.
Yes, and this time we're bringing you Spookshine on a cloudy night, hopefully. Something like that. And on this episode, with horror being the theme, we have two very special guests, the most horror fanatical people I know, besides myself and Nick. We have my sister, Karissa, aka Karasshole. And
thanks. Hello.
That we never came up with a different one. And we have her husband, my brother-in-law, Ryan, aka Rayquaza, aka RMK Buried Alive, an appropriate name for this.
Yeah, a little bit.
Those of you who have been watching on the YouTubes for a while, you should recognize them. Karissa has been in some very old challenge videos, and Ryan has been in quite a few things, in fact.
One or two.
Yeah. Usually with Dalton and or Dylan attached. Speaking of which, Ryan, you know there's a new Broforce game out, right?
I did see that. I think we're going to have to set something up.
Yeah, because that was like the first Let's Play we ever did together.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's new with everyone? Tell me your real quickly, what's going on in your lives? What's happening?
Who wants to go first?
The
You
guests
just spoke.
will go.
Yeah.
I guess you can then.
Okay, yeah.
I was gonna let the guests go first on account of them being guests and all, but
No, but he spoke first. That was the rules.
That's fair. Okay, I've just been working a lot. I'm doing the whole UPS thing. I've been getting good feedback from my supervisor left and right. It's been super busy. I've been like holding my own, loading the trucks with the packages that come down the conveyor belt.
let me ask you something. Are you ready for the holiday season?
Bro,
Where you are?
okay, so thankfully we have been like told that or when I think they're going to start ramping up the hiring process at the beginning, like November, or November-ish, to be prepared for like Black Friday kind of stuff. They're gonna do a mass hiring, and we're gonna have more people because it's gonna get super busy. And from my understanding, there's going to be hours to be taken. So I might pick up a few extra hours to make a little extra money for like Christmas presents for my daughter.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's always a good opportunity.
Yeah.
I did some seasonal work at UPS last year, I want to say, or last December.
Mm-hmm.
I was just separating packages down the line depending on the numbers on them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wasn't nothing too big.
No,
Right.
I load the over the road truck. So yesterday I was in the California truck, and then during the week they have me in the Franklin Park truck, and there's a lot of like cities that I recognize names of from when I was living out in Lake County.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's going on with the rest of yous? You feel free to answer independently or as a combined unit.
All right, so I have three things that I can throw out here real quick. So as some of you may also know, I am a co-host on a podcast called The Fortress of Nerditude that one of my best friends Spencer started, and on the last episode that we recorded, one of the things that him and I had talked about me possibly doing was I noticed that the original Final Fantasy VII was on sale on Steam for like $6. And I had mentioned that I had never played that, and I had seen some stuff that was saying that you needed to play the original in order to really understand a lot of the stuff with the remake. And he kind of pushed, and he was like, just buy it. I wouldn't even think about it. So I ended up scooping that, and I'm a couple hours into my first playthrough. At this point, I've played through the same amount of the remake and the original.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring that up because I thought that was fun.
Yeah. In all fairness, the first entry of the remake is like the first 4 hours of the original stretched into a 40-hour game, and there are really good reasons for that. I will say, playing the original will give you an appreciation for the remake to a heavy degree for sure. But the more important thing, and I mentioned this in an email I sent to your show too.
I haven't heard it yet because we haven't recorded that episode yet.
Yeah, at this time
it'll
be tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, at the time of recording this, it's a Sunday in September. So, and people
spooky.
Yeah, they're not going to hear this until way later. But before Rebirth comes out, I would argue that the events of Crisis Core are more important to experience, and they did do a remaster of that recently on newer systems, just because of the character Zack and how I think he's going to play a role in the future entries in this remake trilogy. Just for reasons that, like, I won't spoil anything for you, but my personal interpretation of the narrative is that it's actually a requel that takes place in an alternate timeline. But that's just the way I see it. You know, you may have a different interpretation.
Man, a requel, those don't happen anymore, you know? Those totally don't happen all the time.
Yeah, it's not like God of War and Scream 5 exist.
Right. Well, on that note, and this is something that I'm sure that Karissa is going to bring up too, we just binged all of the Saw movies in honor of the new one that's coming out in like a week at the time of recording this.
This Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know what you guys thought of Spiral, the what I consider fan fiction spin-off movie.
I will let Karissa give her opinion, but overall, it was a lot better than I thought it would be, honestly.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think going into it with zero expectations really helped.
Yeah. I went into it with as low as you can get. I was not even the slightest bit interested in watching it, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Man, that glass shredding trap.
Oh yeah, that was a unique one, I think.
Nick, you liked Spiral, didn't you?
Spiral, yes. Spiral was one of my favorite favorite of the franchise. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those movies definitely fall on a spectrum in terms of who likes which ones. But I think we can all agree that the first one is one of the better ones.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So I went through and we did that, and then I also just pushed to reread Inheritance, which some people may also know as the fourth book in the Aragon series. Because Christopher Paolini, the author, is dropping a kind of a continuation of it following a character by the name of Murtagh, Originally, Aragon was supposed to be a trilogy that he ended up breaking into 4 books because the last book was getting so long that he had to split it. And then shortly, maybe like a year or two ago, he announced book 5 was in the works. And then he announced that this book was being written and confirmed that this book is not book 5 in the series. So, as Aragon being my favorite book series, finding out that not only am I getting a new book later this year, but I'm also getting a book 5 coming hopefully sooner than later, that has me excited. He also dropped a sequel to one of his other books that he's written called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. And that book is kind of, the new book that he put out is also kind of a requel. You find out that there's a lot of stuff that happens before the game or the book. I haven't read the new one, but he just dropped that not too long ago. So I'm also getting 2 books from my favorite author in the same year after like years of not getting anything. So I'm really, really excited right now.
Man, that takes me back. Oh boy, I know we don't like to talk about it, but God, that movie they made was such a missed opportunity.
Yep, but it's okay because we're getting the full big budget show now, and that is the way to tell the story.
Yes, I agree. I still have and still stick to the opinion that there are some good examples out there of shows that should have been movies and movies that should have been shows. And the 2 best examples that come to mind immediately is The Eternals and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think Obi-Wan should have been a movie and Eternals should have been a show, even though I liked both of them. They both would have benefited. One would have benefited from being shorter and the other from being longer.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't watched Obi-Wan, something that I haven't admitted to Spencer yet. He's been badgering me like, oh, if only you'd start Star Wars Rebels and, watch Rebels, and I just keep playing it off that I, just like, yeah, I'll get around to it at some point. Like, I'm halfway through season 3 of it right now, and he has no idea that I've even started it. And those are kind of longer to watch. Like, I can't just binge a season in one night.
Yeah.
So eventually I'm going to just drop the bomb on him casually by like bringing up something that happens in like the last season of it, or even just watching Ahsoka, which a lot of people are saying is just season 5 of Rebels basically. And, just casually drop it into conversation and watch how he reacts.
Yeah, I've been excited to watch Ahsoka, or I was, but now I've held off because I heard that too, and I was like, fuck, now I have to decide whether or not I want to go through all that before I even start it.
Do it. Absolutely do it. Rebels is freaking amazing. I'm blown away by it.
When I watched Book of Boba Fett, there were some characters that came in that I was like, they look familiar, but I don't know why. Then I had to look into it, and I was like, oh, right, they're from the cartoons. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I have vague memories of the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network, so I know it's all canon too for the most part. So yeah, that's a lot of watching, but Obi-Wan is definitely worth it. I would say that some episodes and some scenes in that show are like on quality with the better halves of the movies, for sure. And I also just like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So, there is a lot of filler in that show that didn't need to be there, but for the most part, it is a very enjoyable ride. And young Princess Leia, like very young, the actress that plays her does a great job and is adorable.
That's good to hear.
So, okay, what's up with you, Karissa?
I've been working and I've been sleeping.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So working and sleeping. How did you feel about your Saw marathon? Or let me ask you this as a combined question for the both of you, because previously to recording this, it's not out yet at the time of recording this. It will be this coming, I want to say Wednesday, hopefully. Nick and I, our last episode we recorded in honor of the upcoming Saw movie, our topic was a Saw Traps tier list, where we ranked like 37 different Saw Traps on a tier list S to F. So let me just ask you this. What is the best and worst trap in the series? Or your favorite? It doesn't have to be an objective answer.
I mean, I don't think it's my favorite, but I do think the cold open public trap in 7 was an interesting take
Yeah.
for the Saw franchise.
Yeah, I would say that one was very interesting. Ryan,
Granted, I don't think any of those people deserve to be in that trap,
No.
but
To be completely honest, my favorite trap in the entire series is probably the sun in the safe.
Oh,
the
the
fact that-
overall test for Eric Matthews?
Yeah, the fact that literally all of that is 100% psychological. All he has to do is keep his cool, and he fails his test. I love that, because in a series that overly implies the gore level of what has to happen, to have a trap that is 100% nothing but a conversation, I love the psych behind that. I don't like a lot of the gore in the Saw movies. I think that a lot of it is kind of just overdone. There are some that I like watching. You know, it's kind of fun watching the Chester Bennington scene in 7 or things like that.
Yeah.
Just because of the people involved, mainly it being Chester Bennington there. But overall, the thing that I really like about Saw, the reason why I am okay watching the movies, is because of all of the psychology behind everything that plays out.
Yeah. And in the later half, it definitely becomes a Criminal Minds cop drama.
Yeah, it does.
When it diverts to Hoffman being the main villain. I would say, gore aside, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but one of the first ones I always think of is the pendulum trap from the opening of the 5th one. I made a habit of watching the behind the scenes of all of these movies, so knowing how they did that gives me a higher appreciation for it, you know, from like a creativity and artsy standpoint.
I don't know how they did that.
So the actor, the whole lower half of his body was a prosthetic. The actor's upper half was real, and his lower half of his body was under the table. They had a prosthetic there that they filled with they had nylons filled with blood packs and raw meat and stuff like that for the intestines. And for the pendulum shots, they actually used a styrofoam blade and a real blade depending on the shot. For some of those scenes, yeah. And so they actually had that pendulum swinging and cutting through the prosthetic and throwing that stuff everywhere. And they did, so a lot of those gut-tossing scenes were done in one take.
Okay, that makes sense.
They used prosthetic hands for the clamps. So for the close-up shots where he's actually putting his hands in there, they had styrofoam clamps for him to put his hands in so he was safe. But then when they actually get crushed, they had prosthetic hands in there filled with blood packs and stuff.
Nice.
And they used real clamps on the prosthetics. So, yeah, they put a lot of work into that stuff.
They also used real maggots in that slaughterhouse trap in Saw 3.
Yes, they did, for the pig corpses. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so disgusting.
It is absolutely disgusting.
That is vile.
And in the behind the scenes, they were laughing about it. They're like, oh, tee-hee, they're getting everywhere.
That's why you can't put me in a Saw trap. I'll just die.
And,
I'll miss half of what Jigsaw was saying anyways, because I'll just be zoned out.
Yeah, in shock. They also, the stuff that judge was being drowned in was a mixture of pea soup and some other stuff. The same stuff that they used to make fake vomit in movies, you know? Basically that's what I like about those movies, is that when they go hard, they try to go all prosthetics instead of CGI. And when they started using CGI in the later ones, you could tell the difference. Practical effects are almost always better when you can pull them off. Looks more real.
Yeah, Saw 7 kind of looked like shit.
with the Vaseline smear over the camera.
I'm also pretty sure most of that budget went to the 3D effects.
Yeah.
That don't hold up anymore.
Extremely gimmicky in that one. Like, throwing the saw at the camera. That wasn't even, like, in character for the character who did it.
Yeah.
But I do love me some Dr. Lawrence Gordon, though. Alright, well, as for me, I just, pretty much the same as my sister here, working and sleeping, but also working on YouTube stuff. I did some overtime yesterday because there was a swim meet at the school, and, I can't lie, for a good part of the day, because I, like, had nothing better to do. All I had to do was, like, set up for them, make sure everything was good, check the trash every once in a while, and then clean up when they were done. So for several hours, I had, like, literally nothing to do. So I just went in the library and took a nap.
Nice.
Yeah. It's like, what, the custodian who normally does it, because his daughter is one of the swimmers, couldn't make it yesterday because they had to be somewhere else, so I filled in for them. They got like 8.5 hours of overtime, though, so...
Hey, that's always a good feeling.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not at the time, but like that paycheck's always a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I didn't want to get up that early, though. I had to be there at like 7 in the morning, but
Yeah.
Oof.
it was fine. Then I did a little grocery pickup from Wally World and played a little video games, but then I was too tired, so I fell asleep. Woke up at like 11 something at night, played a little more, fell asleep again, and then woke up probably around the time I started messaging y'all.
Oh, hi, Nibbler.
Sometimes you gotta take it in pieces where you can get it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, these are the life updates. I was gonna say, it sounds like we did a little bit of a media corner leakage in here, but I'm just gonna let that be what it is, because I still have some media corner stuff. So with that being the case, I'm gonna go ahead and transition over into that section now.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Alright, everyone. Welcome to the Media Corner section of the show. This is the part where we have the news, reviews, and recommendations. However you want to look at it. I just want to say, Tokyo Game Show is going on right now. And there's been a couple of things to come out of that. But mainly, the other night they had a extended look at the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And showed some of the new gameplay, and all I can say is I am beyond excited for this. It's going to be, like, anyone who enjoyed the first entry in the remake trilogy, this one is going to be, like, 10 times better, as far as I can tell so far. It brings back the classic overworld map of Final Fantasy Days of Yore, which makes sense, because that's the next step after Midgar in the original, anyways. So it becomes a sort of an open world RPG at this point. They're adding synchronicity attacks to this one, so you don't have... So while you're... Instead of having to just, wail with regular attacks while you wait for your ATB bar to go up so you can do magic and stuff, there are other options available to you now. What I saw was... I think Aerith cast like a wind spell that Tifa then floated on in the air and used it to do air combos and beat the shit out of a flying enemy. So that looked pretty cool. The combat in general looks more open and fluid, because in the original remake it's very tight, would be, in the first entry, would be the best way to put it, I think. There's going to be a lot of returning characters from the original remake entry. There's going to be chocobos. There's going to be a chocobo ranch. You will have to capture chocobos and tame them in these sort of stealth sections in order to ride them, but once you do, you can. Red 13 is a playable character in this one, and whereas in the original game, Yuffie and Vincent are optional characters, in this game they will be a mandatory part of the story. And this entry will also have the Gold Saucer, which is the infamous casino section from the original, where you can play a bunch of mini games like Chocobo Racing and other stuff like that. So, I am very much looking forward to this. It is, just from, like, they showed us, like, 40 minutes of gameplay, and every last bit of it looked phenomenal. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this. It comes out next February, was the answer we got from the... Yeah, so there's still plenty of time to play through the remake and the Crisis Core remaster before this next entry comes out. As well. I wouldn't say there's plenty of time to play through all of the original, though.
Yeah.
Also, from what I understand, from what they said, this next entry is going to end where that infamous death scene from the original takes place. So, and because of my theory about this game taking place in an alternate timeline, that may not happen exactly the way people are expecting it to, is also part of my theory. There are literally, in the first entry, enemy characters, sort of enemy characters, whose whole purpose is kind of this fourth wall breaking, keep the timeline intact goal. Like, they literally exist to make sure things happen the way they happened before. So, yeah, and that comes into play very importantly later on. So that's why I have my reasons. You'd have to finish the first entry in the remake to understand where I'm coming from, but once you do, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. You know. Alright, does anybody have anything they want to review, recommend, or any media news?
I have an easy one here that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
There's a game that is able to be played on mobile. It's able to be played on literally like every console that's out there. So it's cheap. It's really, really, really easy to actually play. The only control in the entire game is move around with your control stick. It's called Vampire Survivors. And
I've heard of this.
It's won a ton of awards, and it doesn't look, on the very surface, right? You look it up and you see maybe pictures of it. It's pixel art. Like, it doesn't look like anything all that phenomenal, but it is an addicting gameplay loop. And the way that you play it is there's enemies that pop up on the map, and you just have to continue to move. And then depending on every time you level up, you get to pick a new ability or upgrade one of your previous ones based off of kind of a roulette system. You know, it pops up with 3 or 4 choices that you can pick from every time you level up. And, you know, there are some that are, you know, fast, close combat attacks. There are some that are like long range attacks. There's a shield, you know, all sorts of different things that you can pick from. So all sorts of different like flexible builds, but you get to pick up a total of 10 items on each run. And then you just try and survive, for 30 minutes on each map. And as you play, you get gold that you can then use to buy permanent upgrades or new characters to play as that have different starting weapons or different health or different random abilities or things like that. So you can really fully customize it to your advantage. And there's so much other content hidden in each world. There's like, it's just, I cannot like oversell this game enough. It is so good. And
Jacksepticeye is like obsessed with this game, from what I've seen, and I think it was nominated for Best Mobile Game at the Game Awards last year.
It won several major awards. It beat out major games for awards in different game shows. And the best part about this to me, they put out a DLC not too long ago that was like a ton of new content, and they charged like $1.50 for it. They are not a predatory game company, and I absolutely need, like, people need to play this game and support that company because we need more practices like that in gaming.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind, like, mobile games. There's a ton that I actually really like Nier Reincarnation and Dissidia Operamina. but what I hate is when the gacha mechanics do get predatory and it becomes pay to win, where you hit this progress wall where it feels almost impossible to keep going unless you put hours and hours into grinding or pay money.
Yeah,
And
this isn't like
I
that
hate
at all.
that. Okay.
Yeah, no, I absolutely recommend find a way to play this. Like I said, it's on mobile, it's on console, it's on PC. Like, you can play it on literally any device at this point, basically. Give it a try as soon as you can, because it is phenomenal.
There are games that handle the whole gacha thing very well that I appreciate how they put into it. So there are some free-to-play or mobile games like I said, Dissidia, Opera Omnia, or Genshin Impact, where you can beat the entire single-player campaign, the story mode, without spending a dime. And the only time you really have to even think about it is if you want to get involved in the challenge maps and the PvP stuff and all that I don't care about anyway. So, so it's so those I can play through, and like the new Honkai Star Rail as well. Dissidia Opera Omnia actually got around that by basically pushing every character you get in the game to the max level immediately so that you can basically OP the story mode. But if you want to do like challenge maps and stuff, you're gonna have to break level caps and stuff like that, and that requires more effort. So so I appreciate that they at least made it accessible to people who just care about the story part.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else got anything?
Okay.
We've been.
I
Oh,
thought
go ahead, Nick.
This is definitely noteworthy. Ryan Reynolds will receive Bring Change Minds Robin Williams Legacy of Laughter Award at its 11th annual Revels and Revelations fundraiser. The organization announced Wednesday this year's fundraiser will be held in New York City at City Winery, New York on October 9th. The BC2M is Glenn Close's mental health focused nonprofit organization. Each year, the Robin Williams Legacy of Laughter Award is given out at the fundraiser in honor of the late actor by his children, Zach, Zelda, and Cody. Previous recipients include Billy Crystal, Whoopi Goldberg, Ben Stiller, the Smith family, Dan and Eugene Levy, and Melissa McCarthy. Yeah, and
Sounds
That's
like a
pretty
bunch
cool.
of well-deserved recipients to
God,
me.
who
and
better
then it
but
looks like
Ryan
the next
Reynolds,
one
though?
in line is also very well-deserved.
I've literally
Yeah.
never once laughed at anything
Okay.
he's done ever.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
Deadpool and the
great fucking
what is it, Free Guy?
movies.
Yeah,
Great
total
fucking
bombs.
movies.
Nobody liked those.
Complete flops.
Yes.
Box office flops that went on to become cult hits. No. Those movies. I remember the first Deadpool came out on Valentine's Day. That movie did very well.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it sucked.
But that is a cool thing. That is a cool thing that they do. It's a good legacy, and the fact that it's like mental health focused and nonprofit.
Yeah.
All that I approve strongly.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, this is definitely noteworthy, and who better but Ryan Reynolds? Like one of my absolute favorite actors.
At this point, yes.
Well
Yes, and
deserved.
just to be clear,
Well
Deadpool
deserved.
3 has not been canceled. It's just on hold until they figure out the strike stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
got my panties in a bunch for no reason.
Oh,
Everyone support writers.
yes.
Yes.
And thankfully I And, since we're going to be talking about horror stuff anyways, it's worth mentioning A24 came to an agreement with their writers. So, and they're like one of everyone's like favorite horror production companies.
I'm so excited
right now.
for the next movie that they just dropped a trailer for.
What is that?
The Nick Cage
The
one.
Nick Cage one.
Oh, that's right.
What
They
is
are
it?
doing a Nick Cage one.
I'm
What is
looking.
it?
You'll just have to watch the trailer for it, Nick, because I cannot explain what it's about.
No, I just
What's
don't.
it
I don't
called?
remember the name of it. Yeah.
I'm looking right now. Dream scenario.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen the trailer
that sounds
for that yet.
interesting.
I haven't seen the trailer for it yet, but I did see the trailer for it pop up on YouTube. Like it showed up in my recommended.
So the
I
once
sent the link to you. I sent the link for the trailer to you the other day, Justin.
Okay, that's
so
right.
the kind of one paragraph summary here that they're advertising: a hapless family man, Paul Matthews, Nicolas Cage, finds his life turned upside down when millions of strangers suddenly start seeing him in their dreams. But when his nighttime appearances take a nightmarish turn, Paul is forced to navigate his newfound stardom. It almost seems like a weird take on the Truman Show.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
And it looks phenomenal, and it's Nicolas Cage, so, I mean...
Yeah, he's been knocking it out of the park lately with these weird-ass side movies. He used to do weird-ass side movies that suck. Now he does weird-ass side movies that are good.
Yep,
He
I'm
was
here
a-
for it.
He was a fucking amazing Dracula in
Renfield.
Yeah,
I
We
loved
still have to watch
Renfield.
that.
Renfield
it's
was good.
so good.
You guys will enjoy it. I put it up there in the horror comedy vein with like Tucker and Dale and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to see it. We were supposed to go see it with a couple of friends, and then the scheduling just got complicated, and it got out of theaters. But yeah, we should watch that soon.
Yeah, the best thing A24 has put out so recently is Talk to Me. That one was good too, and I think you guys will like that one as well. That I put that in my top 5 A24 movies for sure.
I'm gonna wait for that to come to like a streaming service.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you have, Karissa?
Oh, I was just gonna say we've been watching a lot of Young Justice on HBO Max.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I haven't seen any of that show yet, but I have heard good things.
So much better than
It's
you're
really
gonna
good.
think it is.
Remember, DC is really good at animated stuff.
Yeah. And hopefully,
are.
now that everything is kind of washed, they'll be good at the live action stuff too. Hopefully.
They are.
I'd
Go ahead.
like to add. I put after listening to your episode of Fortress of Nerditude where you guys talked about Flash.
Uh-huh.
That night after I got home from work, I actually put it on and fell asleep watching it.
Was it the babies?
Yes, that's what did it. That's what did it for me. I'm like, I can't even.
That's like the only scene Karissa has actually seen.
I don't think I need to see anymore.
That scene definitely sets an odd tone that sets your expectations weirdly for the rest of the movie, and then from that point, it's just whiplash.
I didn't even.
No,
make it
Whiplash
to-
is actually a really good movie. Come on now.
I didn't even. I didn't even make it to the part where Michael Keaton came in.
Honestly, the way that I can say this is it's worth watching for Michael Keaton. It's
Okay.
and ultimately, like, Ezra Miller needs help.
Yeah.
Needs a
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
help. That
Yeah.
being said, the Barry Allen that he plays, the Flash that, or I should say they play, is entertaining. It is entertaining to watch. I did laugh at a lot of the quips. I did enjoy the movie overall as a whole, but I can't sit there and try and justify all of the problems with the movie. I think it's worth watching once to get the story that they're trying to portray and to, again, get to experience Michael Keaton because he was, like, flawless the entire movie.
Oh, I definitely plan on going back and like sitting down and watching it at some point because I do actually want to see it. I just after listening to y'all's episode, I just like You know what? What the hell?
It's like
Why not?
I have to see for myself how mediocre it is.
Right,
It's
exactly,
Not good,
yeah.
It's not bad. It's somewhere in between. I give it like a 6.
Yeah,
I give it
yeah,
like a 6 out of
exactly.
10. You know.
Yeah.
Karissa, out of curiosity, who's your favorite character in Young Justice?
I'm really not sure. Who's your favorite?
I really liked the Aqualad kind of whole story arc, but I'm also very partial to Kari Payton, so that could be a part of it.
I have to circle back just a tiny bit just to say that as much as I enjoyed Michael Keaton in that movie, by the way, some of his lines are one of my issues with that movie.
Yeah, but I can't really hold the writing against him.
No. It's not his
His performance was flawless. That's more me clarifying that. His performance as Batman was flawless. It was really good to see him back in that role.
It was, but you can kind of tell that that the fan service lines, they feel a bit forced, and it almost feels like he didn't want to say them. You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of reluctancy in some of the delivery.
I can almost see him, the actor himself, rolling his eyes during the "You want to get nuts" line. Like he genuinely looks like he almost rolled his eyes saying it.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah. Speaking of DC animated stuff, I agree with you that their animated stuff is usually the best because I just finished season 4 of Harley Quinn recently on Max, and
the one to watch.
yeah,
The one to watch. Yeah. Yeah.
we keep calling X the website formerly known as Twitter. I'm just gonna start calling it the app formerly known as HBO.
They started pushing that every member is going to have to pay a small fee in order to access X now, by the way. I don't know when it actually takes effect, but Elon Musk said this is his way to combat bots is to make everyone pay. It's probably even just going to be like $1 a month or something like that, but you have to pay in order to even use the app
Well,
anymore.
the Muskrats can have it.
whenever
I'm
that
out.
rolls out.
So dumb.
Yep,
he
I already
can have it.
posted.
He
As
can
soon
have
as
it.
that happens, peace out, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There
no.
goes most of your
I'm-
user base, except for the weird people who idolize other people.
The only reason I'm even on it now, after all of the changes have taken place, is to watch it burn in real time. You know, if I could safely be on board the Titanic, like let's go. That's kind of what's happening here.
It's like a car
I've
wreck;
got
you just
threads.
can't look away.
Yep.
Holy shit! So how are you liking the show, Karissa, Young Justice overall?
It's really, really good.
Okay, so no downsides then.
Not really.
How about you, Ryan?
There's one kind of major character death that partially the nature of how the show tells its story, partially how superhero shows always find a way of kind of bringing characters back and things like that. There was one character death that I think they did not nail the landing on because Karissa and I both were like, no, he's going to come back at some point here. Like, this is going to happen at some point. And then, like, another season went by and I just looked it up because I'm like, what is, like, and then it's like, oh, no, this character died, like, last season. And there was just, it feels like there was no real fanfare for it. You know, there was no, like, holy shit, we just lost one of our best friends. And nobody seemed to really react. Like, they're still talked about. They're still discussed. It really felt like that character was going to make some sort of surprise comeback, and it never happened. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, they kind of treated it like nothing.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's my only real complaint. That's happened technically 2 different times, it feels kind of like now, with 2 different characters. But also, that being said, yeah, look, they aren't afraid to kill off major characters.
Like Game of Thrones.
Or The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
That became, I think Game of Thrones really started that trend, because up until that point, plot armor was a trope for primary protagonists in anything but horror stories. And
There's a character in the last season of Game of Thrones that definitely has some plot armor.
Yep.
I have not made it to the last season yet. So...
Oh, well, when you get there, you'll see what I mean.
There's a character that survives an entire chapel collapsing on them and walks away with literally a scratch.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I haven't even seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
My favorite character, but like, really,
I lived Game of Thrones vicariously through everyone else, and through YouTube clips and South Park parodies and shit like that. So,
Karissa, were we referring to the same character?
Yes.
Okay, if I guess which character, can you confirm or deny?
Yeah, sure. I'm only not spoiling it because I don't know because you said you hadn't finished it. So if you don't care,
I'm in. How many seasons are there? There's 8
7.
seasons, right?
No, there's
7?
8.
Okay, I'm in season 6.
Okay.
I'm in. Okay.
No, the last season didn't happen.
I'm gonna say season 8's the bad
Last
one. I guess 9 seasons if you count House of the Dragon.
Right. Okay. So I am in season 6.
Okay.
I'm in season 6.
Okay.
And after watching how much of it I have watched, I'd have to safely say my favorite character is Tyrion Lannister.
Okay. That is not the character I was referring to.
Okay.
A lot of people didn't like season 7 either, but I thought it was fine. And one of my favorite plot twist deaths happens in season 7.
Ooh, scandalous.
But yeah, season 8 is definitely the worst.
Well, and I also season 8 had a lot of production problems. A dark ass episode, no one could see the Starbucks cup sitting in the frame.
The bottle of water in the other one.
So that was. It feels like once they caught up to the books, they just didn't know what to do from that point and winged it.
Yeah, 100%.
But also, D&D got hired on to write the next Star Wars movies while they were still doing Game of Thrones, so it's speculated that they just kind of rushed through season 8 so they could get to working on that, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot.
And then they lost Star Wars.
Oof.
Because
they lost their Star Wars contract because of how the last season of Game of Thrones went.
Yeah, Disney saw how bad season 8 went and all the backlash they got, so they let them go.
Well, in all fairness, Star Wars and I guess by extension also the MCU has as of lately been a roller coaster in terms of quality.
That's why I'm vouching for Rebels as hard as I was, because it is very good, but also it was from a while ago. It's not new.
No.
But Ahsoka is new.
And people are liking that, I think. And I
haven't gotten around to it.
If you watch
yet.
Rebels, you have to watch The Bad Batch too, though, don't you?
I don't know that you have to.
All of this ties
sure.
into Rogue One in some way or another, and then the Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are also canon. Just so you know.
I still have to play through those. I played an hour or two of Fallen Order, and I liked it. I just got distracted.
Yes, Uncharted Wars, Star Souls, Metroid. It really is all those things. Okay.
Why play one game, or why play all these games when you can play them all in one?
Yeah. It definitely it definitely borrows a lot from Soulsborne and Metroidvania games, but then there's also some Uncharted in there too, for sure. Well, all right then. So that will be it for the media corner in this episode, I think, and we'll just go ahead and go straight into the topic. Our guests have
going into the topic.
Yes, our guests have a hard out today, so we're going to try and make this one a little bit briefer. So,
okay,
into the topic we go.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
All right, everyone, welcome to this episode's topic, which, in honor of the spooky season of October/Halloween, is going to be all about the
Yes.
horror genre. We're talking movies, books, TV shows, music, video games, all that fun stuff, and what have you. So, to start us off, I have we're going to go back to the beginning, to the origins with this first question, and I'm going to ask everyone what is there, as far back as you can remember, what got you into horror? What's your first memory with the horror genre? What sparked your interest in all of this?
Michael Myers.
So it was
Same.
Halloween for you.
So what it was is I didn't see any of the original Halloween movies first. The first Halloween movie I saw was the Rob Zombie Halloween. But I did end up going back and watching a lot of the originals, and I got super excited when they decided to basically do the 40-year continuation with a trilogy. Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. Loved
Evil
it.
dies tonight.
Yes, it was so good. Okay, so I'll have to say Halloween Ends.
That's the one everyone hates, apparently.
Oh my god, it could have been so much better,
I didn't hate
but
it.
Michael Myers he was barely in it. It was like more like a passing of the torch kind of thing. Yeah.
They undid the they completely undid the everything after the first original movie up until the new timeline starts.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
Halloween was supposed to just be a standalone horror movie.
Because
Yeah.
the requel
turn into a whole fucking franchise.
the requel is a direct continuation of the original, and then that's where it goes on with those other two you mentioned.
Yeah.
But you said Michael Myers is what got you into horror, so I imagine you were familiar with him before you watched the movies then.
Yeah, it was a recurring thing when I was in high school, and I ended up like going to see the Rob Zombie Halloween movie in theaters opening weekend, and let me tell you, that movie theater was packed
Do you remember
to the brim.
what the first horror movie you ever saw was?
I don't know. I do not know. I do not remember for the life of me what my first horror movie was.
Mine
Okay.
was either Jaws or Poltergeist. I'm not sure which one, but
Okay.
I don't know. I want to say I was like 7 or 8 when I first watched those.
So is that what got you into horror?
No, that's not what got me into horror. I watched the original Halloween at a friend's house when I was like 12, and that's what really got me into horror.
Okay.
So I watched that for the first time, and then my dad and stepmom at the time, they would take us to Family Video, when that was still a thing. And we would just rent random horror movies.
Oh,
A
yeah,
lot
I
of
remember.
misses.
My sister was kind of where I got introduced to a lot of my taste in music and a lot of kind of the movies and things like that I enjoyed too. I am trying to remember what the actual first horror movie that I watched was, but I remember really getting into it with the Final Destination movies. I think the first actual horror movie that I saw in theaters that I can remember, though, and this is one that Karissa, tries to give me a hard time about, and one that the Dead Meat podcast has the absolute wrong opinion on. Stay Alive, the horror movie where if you die in the video game, you die in real life the same way.
Frankie Muniz.
Frankie Muniz is in that movie. I love that movie. I still thoroughly enjoy it. I still think that it was a missed opportunity to not make a horror video game based off of that game. Though
how are they going to kill people in real life?
Would have sucked.
They have that. It's called Sword Art Online.
But yeah, I still thoroughly enjoy that movie every time I watch it. And
yeah, Justin, remember we watched that at your old place because Mom put it on and she's like, "Oh, you guys will like this. It's about video games." And we watched it and we're like, "What the hell?"
I have I was pretty lukewarm on that one. I didn't love it or hate it. It was kind of in the middle for me, but I understand where you're coming from, Ryan, because I to this day will still defend the underrated Saw clone movie Are You Scared, which a lot of people shit on and is also very hard to find a copy of now, but it was, in my opinion, a very interesting take on that whole killing games and trap premise,
Okay.
Because it was a bunch
Never
of people,
even heard of that.
they thought they were going to a reality show based off this kind of stuff, and it ended up being real, and there's one, I guess you could call it trap in particular in there, that there's two siblings that are tied to these chairs and they have these drills coming towards them, and basically they have to choose between the two of them which one is gonna die, because they're they have to willingly push the drill towards themselves, so they're actually fighting each other over which one is going to sacrifice themselves. It has Hawkeye Black Widow vibes from that one scene in Infinity War, but
okay.
but a lot more gory and emotional. It is a surprisingly emotional scene for that kind of movie, what a lot of people would loosely call torture porn.
I think I remember the first horror movie I ever watched, or horror-related superhero movie.
Oh, really?
Spawn.
Oh, you know what? I'll count it. I mean,
I feel like it was a horror. I feel like it's a horror-related superhero.
It is horror adjacent.
Wouldn't you say?
And it all. If it's
Okay.
horror adjacent, I'm counting it in this episode because it's all
Okay.
things in that ballpark. And,
Twilight.
Yes.
That I would consider more drama.
Vampires. It has vampires. It has werewolves.
But I was gonna
does.
It has
say,
beheadings.
yeah,
It
and they
does.
sell merch at Hot Topic. Therefore,
It's
horror.
terrifying
Yeah,
to
they
think about.
Just like My Little Pony.
So just to backtrack a little, Justin, that Are You Scared movie, it came out in 2006, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so according to Google, you can watch it on Tubi, Redbox, Prime, or Freevee.
Okay. Probably with ads on Tubi and Freevee.
Yeah. It's got a 3.1 out of 10 on IMDb, a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 2.4 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Okay, but we're talking about a horror movie to begin with, and this is one that would be
That's
on the more
true.
extreme end of horror also.
Yeah.
So
It had a sequel, a found footage, weirdly enough, sequel that was absolutely terrible. It was not good at all. But I liked the first one.
I'd also trust the Letterboxd reviews a little more than Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, because Letterboxd seems to be more generous when it comes to horror movies.
All I can say is, if you have any love for Saw-type movies, give it a watch. If it's available to watch on Tubi and all that stuff, even with the ads, it's worth it just to see if you are a fan of the unique deaths specific to that character type of story structure for these movies too, like Final Destination or Boogeyman 2, that one sticks in my mind because that one took place in a mental hospital where everyone died based on their phobias. So that lives rent free in my head. I like that level of creativity in my horror movies with the character deaths. So
Urban Legend.
Yes, Urban Legend, exactly. And they actually did 2 sequels, the first of which was okay, but the third one was unnecessary.
Yeah.
The Bloody Mary one was just whatever. Yeah.
Oh, with the CGI spiders coming out of that girl's face.
That is the only scene I really remember or care to remember from that movie,
Same.
to be honest. Because it's based, that one is actually based on an urban... They did the rest of them, too. Like, they tried to do, like, the Dogs Can Lick 2 one and all that, but they didn't do them as much justice as the ones in the first movie.
Did you watch Dead Meat's episodes on the urban legend kill counts?
Yes, I've watched all 3 of them.
So you remember in the first one when James was like, oh yeah, Jared Leto was in the first one, but he now denies that he was ever in it and claims that he's never even heard of the movie.
That's a very Jared Leto thing to do. But yes, I would actually, even though it is in the vein of like those creative kills type movies, I would also technically put urban legend in the slasher genre, because it was one person doing it the whole time.
It got compared to Scream a lot, which I don't think is really fair.
I feel like it's more Final Destination than it is Scream.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you could
I
argue,
mean, I know what
argue
you
that
did
it is
last
still
summer.
one person the entire time in Final Destination and stuff like that too.
I know
it's
what
all
you
Tony
did last
Todd's
summer
fault.
also got compared to Scream.
That's a more
lot,
fair
which,
comparison
again,
because of the time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was also a slasher revenge. That was a slasher movie, but also a revenge movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Scream was 96, and Urban Legend, the first one, was 98.
I
So
I
it's still
also
around the same time.
Yeah.
revenge horror movies are among some of my favorites. I just wish that all of them didn't have that the revenge didn't always have to be for like sexual assault.
Yeah.
It makes the opening of those movies hard to watch, but it does make the kills all the more satisfying when they come. I'm thinking of Last House on the Left and I Spit on Your Grave in particular.
Yeah, those are some pretty dark ones.
Yeah, or Twilight.
But wow. I mean, in a way you're not wrong.
You're right.
There was a lot of non-consensual stuff in those movies.
Yeah, there was.
And people like imprinting on people's newborns
Yeah.
and stuff. Very weird.
Oh,
Very
Bella, it
weird.
turns out that I didn't love you. I loved your unborn baby. I can't wait until you have birth with that baby. Hey, I'll watch that baby anytime, baby. Hey, baby.
I
What's
love
up,
your
baby?
uterus.
It really is horror when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Twilight
Yeah,
is
well,
like
and then...
Twilight is like the ultimate, like, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's
Anti-horror.
It's basically a story of a girl who's trying to decide whether she wants to go with necrophilia or bestiality.
I know what you are. Say it. A pedophile.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, hang
Right.
on.
you may look my age, but you are like centuries older than me. It's
Right.
Real quick, do you guys know the My Chemical Romance association with Twilight? Do you know that whole story?
No.
Do you know?
I do not off the top of my
So-
head, but I can say the only thing I ever really liked about those movies was their soundtracks.
So this is crazy to think about, right? So 9/11 happens, and Gerard Way, the vocalist of My Chemical Romance, experiences that whole situation, right? He ends up starting a band to help deal with some of his feelings about that, which ends up being My Chemical Romance. My Chemical Romance ends up inspiring Stephanie Meyer to write the Twilight books, which then inspires someone to write 50 Shades of Grey. So if 9/11 hadn't happened, we would never have 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Listen.
Interesting.
all right.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
It is
I
just
still
a
love the Twilight
a
franchise
factual chain
as
of
much
events.
as I did.
Here,
still-
it's a,
I still love the
Here we-
Twilight franchise as much as I did when I was in middle school, but just in a completely different way now.
yeah, kind of like Kingdom Hearts. When you start looking at the flaws as charms, it hits different.
Like, somebody could come up to me and be like, hey, Twilight sucks, and I'll be like, yes, I agree, I love it.
Yeah. Sometimes I unironically, unapologetically enjoy bad things. I can't even lie about that. I realize some of the things I like are very flawed, like Final Fantasy 13. I don't care, though. I still like it.
Hey, did you ever finish Velma?
I have not. It's been a rough one. Have you ever finished Black Panther?
Bro, I got halfway through before I had to come back over to my apartment. I was watching it over at Asher's.
Just watch the Barbie movie. They're basically the same.
I'm going to... Okay, so I am going to...
Are you saying the Barbie movie is like Black Panther and Velma combined?
I don't know about Velma. I haven't watched that, but Black Panther and Barbie have the same overall kind of concept. I saw a video that kind of explained the plot in a way that you could be explaining either movie to a T.
It's funny because the pitch meetings video for the Barbenheimer thing said that Barbie and Oppenheimer basically have the same plot and themes.
I am planning on watching the Barbie movie when it hits Max.
It's so good. I can't wait to watch it again.
I can't wait to see John Cena's cameo. Because I've heard so... I've heard...
I wish you could see it.
I'm excited to see it.
So I will say, for me, because somehow still on the same question here, but it ties in with something Karissa said and something you said, Ryan. My early horror memories are for a while when we actually lived with Carissa's dad at Georgia's house, if you remember. We stayed upstairs for a while. We stayed downstairs for a while. When we stayed upstairs, I remember I had to have been 12 around this time because the first Final Destination came out in like 2000, and I was sneaking peeks of it. I was supposed to be asleep, but I was sneaking peeks of it. I definitely remember like the end of the movie where the sign swung into the guy's head and shit like that. Like, and I also remember watching her dad play. Like, I would sneak out of my room when we were living in the downstairs part of the building and catch glimpses of Resident Evil 2 on the PS1. And those were some of my, like, more early horror memories. Maybe not early-ist, but some of the earlier I can remember, and then I just kind of, like, just started like watching the genre. I think really a lot of it, South Park might have played a role because I watched that when I was too young to be watching it. But
my dad would take me to work with him. My dad would take me to work with him when he used to work at the Metro Center, and pop me into his little office and turn on South Park because that was the only thing that was on. Right. I was like 5.
Okay.
Okay. Well, and you watched it with me at our great grandmother's house a few times too.
Yeah.
I think, for me personally, a lot of those repeated Kenny deaths were probably kind of what started my like interest in the more gore side of horror. Like, I can't even lie. It was just, but for me, it was, like I said, that's why I like the ones where it's more creative. It's not just, everybody gets stabbed, It's the more, like, Final Destination, Saw, other ones like that, where it's different and creative for everyone.
Yeah.
It's just so cartoony, literally.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's because, like, the way that they killed Kenny in every episode until they ran out of ways to do it was, like, different every time. Like, it was always some weird over-the-top Looney Tunes type shit, too, So, and then eventually they just wrote it into the story that it's like a superpower that he has or whatever because his parents conceived him during a Cult of Cthulhu meeting. The show is so weird. I love it. So that's where I got my start with the early horror stuff. And, of course, I've been a fan of horror movies, games, TV shows, and all that shit ever since. So what would you guys say is probably your favorite horror genre? You've got your slashers, you've got your Saw types, you've got psychological horror, body horror, creature features. demon
I'd have to
movies, like exorcism movies, stuff like that. What
I'd
what tickles your fancy?
I'd have to say paranormal horror is my favorite.
So are we talking like Poltergeist?
Yeah, stuff like that. I enjoy like the paranormal stuff because there's like an entire section on Max dedicated to like paranormal stuffs. Like one of my favorite shows on there. It's got one of the male host is Jack Osborne, Ozzy's son, and it's called Portal to Hell. And there's a lot of different episodes. There's actually like an hour and a half long special that he had brought his sister Kelly on for, and there was a whole nother spin-off where Ozzy and Sharon were watching their investigation remotely from home, and Ozzy's banter with Sharon back and forth while watching Jack and Kelly was hilarious.
Okay. If you asked me a couple years ago what my favorite ghost movie was, ghost or demon movie in that vein, it would be a hard toss-up between The Haunting in Connecticut and the first Insidious, at least up until the ending.
Okay.
But now I think I would have to say Talk to Me. It's probably up there.
Okay.
So you said, so what's your favorite movie in this genre?
Favorite movie in this genre? I would have to say... That's such a hard choice.
There's a lot of options.
There is.
It's Ghost Ship, isn't it?
You know what?
The opening, the
here's
opening
thing.
of Ghost Ship
I was actually
slaps,
going to mention...
but...
I was actually going to mention Ghost Ship because Ghost Ship was actually the first horror movie I purchased.
Oh.
So yes, I will have to say yeah, Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship is my favorite in the in this genre.
There is nostalgia glasses involved in this one. And that's
Yes.
okay. But I will say the opening of Ghost Ship absolutely slaps for me. That is one of the best horror movie openings ever.
No,
but then the rest
yeah,
of it for
definitely.
me goes downhill
Agreed.
after that. Just me personally.
Ghost Ship and 13 Ghosts.
13 Ghosts is good.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yes,
I
it
like
was.
that one. That is one of the few ones where I actually disagree with Dead Meat. I actually like 13 Ghosts. But I will agree with them that bisection kill with the glass walls is probably the best one in the movie.
Yes.
Matthew Lillard just makes everything better.
Yep, agreed.
Yes. he
I
does.
forgot he was in. I
Zoinks.
forgot he was in the original Scream for a while there. It's just, man, it's been so long.
How could you forget
Yeah.
that?
Because it's just been that long, you know? It's just been so long. Sometimes because when I first watched movies like that, I wasn't as big on the, like, actor trivia side of things as I am now. Now I can recognize most of those people just by their voices sometimes, you know? But,
Everybody thought he was gonna come back for the one for Scream 6 this year.
oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert, he did not.
No. They did give him,
he
they
didn't.
did give him a voice cameo among many other previous actors in one of the movies, though, where they did a fourth wall breaking tribute to a character named Wes in the movie, but also the late director Wes Craven at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in 5.
Yeah, so all of the voices that
Yep.
you hear in that scene that were like saying to Wes and all that were all previous actors from the previous movies.
Deadbeat
Yeah,
also had a cameo
yeah.
in Scream 5.
Yeah, so like on that note, like, because we're talking about it anyways, I've always wanted to give a quick shout out to Dead Meat on this show because they are a great, not only horror podcast, but they have this series on YouTube called The Kill Count, where they basically recap horror movies and they go through all the different deaths in the movie, which is the main focus. But they also do like a full-on, like, pretty well paraphrased recap of the actual movie, like step by step in a way that you can understand it. Whereas like things like CinemaSins and Pitch Meeting are more disjointed and jump around for the sake of making jokes. The Dead Meat focuses not only on the jokes, but also on making sure you understand from one scene to the next what's going on in the movie, even if you haven't seen it. And they're really good about that when it comes to the editing and stuff. The jokes usually hit. They're genuinely funny. And then at the end of every episode, they break down the kills by gender, and they have a pie chart and all that, and they give out the golden chainsaw for best kill and the dull machete for the worst kill in the movie. So I have to recommend them, because if there are any horror movies that you want to go back and rewatch, but you don't have the time, but you want a refresher before a new one comes out or whatever, they're probably the best way to do that for the ones they have. Or if there's ones that you've been meaning to watch, but you just don't think you'll ever get to it, and you don't care about spoilers, just watching one of their videos, for the most part, kind of gives you a pretty good idea of everything that happened in the movie, and it's almost like you've seen it yourself. Not quite the same, but almost. So,
yeah, we watched all 5 of the Scream kill counts, the first 4 being the recounts, right before we went to go see Scream 6, because it was the day before, and we did not have time to watch all 5 movies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in hindsight, you probably could have done that for the Saw movies, too.
Nah.
Yeah.
I mean, his Saw kill counts are like 5 years old at this point.
They are older, except for the one for Jigsaw. I don't know if they ever did one for Spiral. If they have, I can't remember. But,
I think they did.
Yeah, they're great.
Yes.
It's awesome seeing them get even more success, too, since Karissa introduced me to them, because she's been listening to them for forever.
I've been watching the kill counts for years, but I didn't get into the Dead Meat podcast until, like, a year ago.
But you knew about them. And
yeah, I knew who they were.
You know, so you introduced me to them a while ago too, and now seeing them actually getting into horror movies and finding success and like guest starring at conventions and things like that, being in music videos with bands like Ice Nine Kills, their whole relationship is awesome to see.
They have a cameo in one of the Scream movies as a CinemaSins parody channel, making fun of the in-universe stab movies.
Yeah, and it's great.
Yeah, Justin, I know you don't listen to like the heavier type music that Ryan and I do, but you should really check out Ice Nine Kills, especially their last 2 albums, because they're all inspired by horror movies, like all the songs.
Yes.
And
watch the music videos, because each music video,
at least do that.
Each music video not only recreates parts of the songs that they're based off of, but there's this whole meta commentary that their vocalist is actually a serial killer, and he's imitating all of these other serial killers, and there's like a whole court trial that goes on, and Dead Meat actually makes appearances in the like original stories being told throughout each music video. There's an actual order to watch them so you can get the whole story, and it's kind of this just perfect, like, you know, love letter to horror, and the production quality on everything is just absolutely phenomenal. They do not cheap out, and they are all really solid actors, in addition to all of the songs being really solid. You would dig them for sure.
Nice. Okay, yeah, and I've heard that they've been in their music videos. We are actually going to dedicate a section here to horror-based like bands and stuff like that. But before we get there, same question goes to you guys, real quick. Favorite genre in horror overall, whether it's movies, games, shows, books, whatever, just your horror genre. What do you like?
I do really like psychological horror, but I'll say I probably watch slashers the most because they're just fun and mindless for the most part. Halloween, the original one, is still my favorite horror movie of all time, but that being said, I think Scream is probably my favorite franchise because there's just not a bad Scream movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with everything that she just said.
Okay.
I think that the first Scream movie might edge out Halloween for me, but I do like Halloween the most out of the original 3 kind of big slashers.
Out of like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween is my favorite of the 3.
Okay. For
Didn't you say 30 Days a Night was your favorite horror movie, or is that changed by now?
I think that's changed at this point, but that is still my ultimate favorite depiction of vampires. There's only one thing that they kind of got wrong with all of that, being the entering a household without permission part. But the overall concept of that movie is that it takes place in an isolated part of Alaska where the sun does not come out for 30 days, and basically the night before that starts, vampires come in, knock out all communication to the outside world, and then basically it's you know, the small group of townspeople that stayed in town for this 30 days of night versus these just insanely powerful, strong, terrifying vampires. They do that entire movie so well. The contrast of snow and blood together, too, is just, it's very well done.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that one. I've seen 30 Days of Night. I'm not sure if I put that... Do you put that under Creature Feature or not? Because when I think Creature Feature, I think more like B movies where they're all being slaughtered by some big animal, you know?
Yeah, I this almost feels more like, almost like a Predator Prey slasher.
Okay.
If you think of vampires as a singular unit, because that's kind of how they operate, it almost feels more like a slasher, than it is anything else.
Okay.
It's very much a horror survival movie.
Okay, so for me, psychological horror is definitely up there, and I would even consider some psychological thrillers to be in this vein. Stuff like Secret Window and Jacob's Ladder. I would consider those. But I'm also a big fan of cosmic horror, like Lovecraftian existential crisis, fate worse than death kind of stuff. The kind of shit that keeps you awake at night thinking about it. That's why I was such a big fan of Soma, because of the whole, everything that it introduced into that. So there are some movies like that. I can't really think of one off the top of my head now that I think about it, but I know that I've seen some horror movies where the characters just end up in a fate worse than death, or it's some kind of it kind of hits you hard with the whole out of body experience thing, in some kind of way. I like those ones that get you thinking, or that they're not trying to scare you with jump scares and making you squirm with the gore, but they're planting these seeds in your mind that'll grow into intrusive thoughts later.
Yes,
that kind of stuff.
Have you seen Annihilation with Natalie Portman?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
a good
have
one.
not.
Oh, that's a good one.
I would also...
Is it streaming anywhere?
I think it was on Netflix for a while.
I saw it on Hulu not too long ago. I also own it, but let me see.
Fair, okay.
Yeah. There's just some unfortunate fate type scenarios in a lot of those things, and in my experience, though, a lot of that particular type of horror, that particular genre, is usually better conveyed in video games than it is in movies, just because of the effect it has on you as a player since you're part of it.
It looks like Annihilation is streaming on Netflix and Paramount Plus right now.
Okay. All right, I've got both of those.
On the topic of Annihilation and cosmic horror, I would also say that kind of...
That bear.
That leaks into sci-fi horror a little bit, and I have to say, I'm not sure if I would consider it horror, but in the sci-fi genre, Arrival might be one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's definitely a slow burn, but the questions that it brings to the table are definitely worth pondering. It's just a very beautifully filmed, well-done movie about aliens and communicating with them.
Also, John Carpenter's The Thing is a really good one.
Yeah, Does that falls under body horror though, doesn't it? Which I know you guys aren't a big fan of.
Oh yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like body horror, like more like David Cronenberg type body horror, so I don't think I can ever sit and watch The Fly. Even though I love Jeff Goldblum, sorry, I just don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy The Thing. I think it's a great horror movie, but yeah, I had to watch like Bob's Burgers after the first time I watched that movie.
Fair enough. I also think body horror is sometimes translated better in video games too, and I think when like people mutate into giant creatures in Resident Evil games and stuff like that, I would consider that a sci-fi body horror combo. Most likely, because to me, body horror is just when human transform into distorted creature thing. You know, that's what it is for me. So I would definitely say, I guess you could say, even though they're technically zombie movies, for the humans that mutate into giant things, the Resident Evil movies do kind of fall in that department a little bit too. I would even argue that zombies in and of themselves are technically a form of body horror.
That is true.
What do you think
I would
about
agree with that, but I think that that's a much more palatable variation of it.
Yeah, it's more accessible to a wider audience. There's a lot of, I mean, horror in general definitely falls in a niche, but then under that genre of horror, there's a bunch of subgenres that are even more niche.
Yep.
So, actually, speaking of, I would like to say, I definitely like, I'm going to call them puzzle horror movies, is what I'm going to call them. Stuff like Saw, Escape Room, The Cube, stuff like that, because people are technically solving a puzzle to survive. So that's what I'm going to call them. I think The Cube is highly underrated in that department. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but...
I haven't, but it's been on my list.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very similar one where a bunch of people wake up in basically what is a giant cube, and they have to go room to room and avoid these booby traps in order to survive. To a degree, I liked Escape Room for that same reason. Tournament of Champions could have been a little bit better, the second one, but the first one I really enjoyed. I think on a first watch I didn't like it as much because I was expecting something more on the level of Saw with the kills and stuff, and I thought they were all like pretty simple. But then on a rewatch, I had to give it a lot of appreciation for its accuracy to how escape rooms actually work, you know, and what people look like going through them looking for clues and stuff. Some things are better on a rewatch, I think, and that was one of those movies for me. Anybody seen Escape Room?
Oh, Escape Room
Not
was
yet.
so good. It was so good. Oh my gosh, yes. And they have a sequel.
Yeah, you liked it. Okay. What about you two?
I have not.
No, we haven't seen it yet.
No? Okay. I think you guys will like that one because I think actually you in particular, Ryan, will appreciate the fact that even though the kills are creative, they're not super gory in this movie or anything
I like
that. And the focus really is on them trying to solve puzzles. Like it works like an actual escape room, except failure equals death. You know.
Yeah.
So it is pretty.
Is that not
interesting.
how escape rooms work?
Yeah. Well, there are some VR escape room horror game combos that work that way, yes. So, okay. Yeah, so I definitely think, like, you know, cosmic horror, psychological, all that. I just like it when a movie is trying more to be, you know, show don't tell is a big thing for me in horror movies. And, you know, playing on certain tropes that work when they're just trying to, like, fuck with your mind more than actually, you know, like, jump scares get cheap after a while, but making you uncomfortable is what horror should do. And some good examples of this is there's, like, a scene in the first Insidious movie where the kid insists that there's something in his room, and the camera focuses on this dark corner, and there's nothing there that you know of. You can't see it. But just you get this feeling that there might be something there, and it makes you very uncomfortable. The fact that there could be something there, but you can't see it, it kind of fucks with you.
Get Out. Get Out is a perfect. Granted, that's more like that is a considered a thriller, but
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable
That's
the
a horror.
entire
Yeah.
movie. I was uncomfortable literally the entire movie, and that's exactly what I want out of a movie like that. I could not
Jordan
look away. It
Peele
was so
himself
good.
even called that a horror movie.
Huh?
So, Jordan Peele himself even called Get Out a horror movie.
Okay.
It's just like Hollywood trying to pass it off as a thriller.
Yeah, I would consider it. It's a
It
different
definitely has
kind
elements
of
of
horror.
both.
It's definitely a different kind of horror. And the best example of what I'm talking about in recent years I can think of, though, is the 2020 Elizabeth Moss Invisible Man movie, where
That was
That
really
one
good.
was good.
That was so good.
you can always tell when he's there, even though you can't see him. You just feel his presence just coming off the screen. It is so well done. Mm-hmm. So well filmed.
Yes.
Just a
That-
side note about Elizabeth Moss. So, you know, she's like a Scientologist. She was born and raised in Scientology. But with her doing things like The Invisible Man and Handmaid's Tale, I wonder if she's trying to cry for help.
Oh, yeah. That's that would be unfortunate if it were true. But okay. So yeah, those definitely fall among some of my favorites in the horror movie genres. Let me ask you then, what is to you? It can be either your favorite or what you think is the most iconic horror villain in horror history. And there's a lot to work with. I mean, we've got Michael Myers, we've got Freddy and Jason, we've got Dracula, we've got Jigsaw, we've got Ghostface. You know,
Ghostface.
Yeah, I think Ghostface is a pretty easy answer for me.
Because
Yeah,
with Ghostface, it's not about a specific person. It's about carrying on the legacy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Ghostface is, yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't.
Anybody
agree
and
with
everybody is Ghostface.
Yeah.
We are Ghostface.
With Ghostface's Legion. Yeah, I can.
And I am Negan.
I can get behind that. Oh, you know what? I actually just thought of something, and this is probably the best example I could come up with of what is actually a perfect combination for me of body horror and fate worse than death existential crisis shit. There is, in the first season of, I know, just bear with me. In the first season of Rick and Morty, there is an episode where a selfish decision by one of the characters basically Cronenberg's their entire universe, and the two main characters just kind of piece off to a different universe and replace dead versions of themselves, leaving that universe to its Cronenbergian fate, where everyone is turned into a horrifying monster, except for a few people who are left to survive in this world where everyone that they've known and loved has turned into a hideous creature. That, to me, that's the kind of, like, fucked up shit that I like in my horror. You know, just that, like, there is no escape. This is either like you either live in this new world or you take yourself out early. Those are your only two options. And it's just horrifying. There's no happy ending, there's no hope. It's just bleak and despair. And that kind of stuff, like, to me is where horror really shines, because it's like it doesn't get much more evil than that, does it? You know? Hopeless
exactly.
endings are. I know they're not everyone's favorite, but if it's done right, I think it really fits in the genre. You know, granted, sometimes it's not done right. Sometimes it feels like a slap in the face, like the end of the Nicolas Cage Wicker Man movie, for example, which I hated, or the end of Shutter Island, which I also was not happy with. Although I get it was the point of the movie, I still didn't like it. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I listened to this horror movie podcast called The Horror Virgin, where basically the whole concept of it is one of the hosts on there does not like horror movies, so every week the other two hosts will make him watch one.
That's awesome.
Wow.
But
That is
all three of
amazing.
the hosts on that podcast, they don't really like nihilistic endings.
Yeah, nihilistic,
Which-
that's the way to put it, which is actually very on theme for Rick and Morty, because the entire show is nihilistic.
Which I understand not liking nihilistic endings, because their whole reasoning is, shitty things happen in life anyway, and I watch movies to try and escape from
Right.
that. so that's totally fair, but I also do kind of like nihilistic endings when they're done right.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I was saying. A nihilistic ending can be good. To me, a unhappy ending isn't inherently bad on the basis of it being an unhappy ending. I go into every horror movie expecting the good guys to lose, just so if it does happen at the end, I'm not disappointed, because it's horror. You know? It's kind of par the course for everyone to die. But if it's formulaic, you will probably end up having a final girl or something like that, and they'll defeat the bad guy in the end, and you get a happy ending, only for them to turn around and die in the sequel anyways. So
I know it's not 100% horror related, but when you mention movies or shows with like an unhappy ending, I instantly think of Lemony Snicket's The Series of Unfortunate Events.
well, it's in the title. I mean,
It really is.
you go into that one kind of expecting it, you know?
I'm so glad that
Yeah.
we got a series that was actually well done, because that movie was dog shit.
I liked the movie, but I also liked the series.
I like Jim Carrey. That's where I'll
Yeah.
begin and end on that part. Like,
yeah,
that's-
yeah. Jim Carrey made the movie.
Kind of like,
It's just the fact that they advertised it as one book, but they took the first three, combined it together, and then like slapped on a weird ending to it. Like it killed the potential that it could have had, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, this
But the
Yeah,
series was actually
yeah.
really well done.
this might be a
It
controversial
was.
take, but I don't think the new Sonic movies would be as good as they are if it wasn't for Jim Carrey. You know,
Oh,
I
agreed.
mean, yeah,
I'm not saying
Yeah.
he Jim Carreyed those movies, but
okay. Considering,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
considering,
yeah.
I'm confused as to like how they're going to do the third Sonic movie without him if he's not going to come back and reprise his role as Dr. Robotnik.
Shadow the Hedgehog will be the new villain. That's pretty
Fair.
easy.
Okay.
They're following the Sonic
Yeah.
Adventure timeline, so it'll be Sonic, or it'll be Shadow and the whatever that government agency is called.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes
So-
sense.
Okay, so Ghostface for everybody on that one. I can't say I disagree, to be honest.
I will say a new one that's been making its rounds for iconic horror villains. I have not seen either of these movies because I hate clowns and have no interest in
Terrifier.
watching them.
Terrifier.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Art the Clown.
Art
He's
Yeah.
getting up there, I think.
So,
I've seen the first one.
I've seen the kill counts and whatnot for him. And other like recap videos. The kills in that movie are some of the most over the top, gory ass slasher kills I've ever seen in a movie like that.
Terrifier was the
Like-
first Terrifier was insane.
They are.
Yeah, but I feel like the
brutal.
over-the-top kills are kind of part of its quote-unquote charm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You could
Yeah,
call it
uh-huh.
that. You could call it that. Yeah, so, yeah, for me, slashers don't always hit just because, I mean, they have good stories, but then, you know, there's too many of them after that, and I want something a little more investing and a little more creative, but I do have a lot of respect for the OGs. I mean, horror wouldn't be where it is and what it is without them, of course. So, you know, but I definitely think
I mean,
I'm more...
who can forget Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors? Welcome to primetime, bitch.
Sometimes a good twist can make a good movie too. I don't know if, like, has everyone seen the Insidious movies here, or at least the first two?
A
I've seen the
long
first
time
one.
ago.
I've seen all of them up to the Red Door. I
Okay,
have not
so
seen
I
the
think
Red. I have not seen the most recent one.
the twist in the second Insidious movie is actually one of my favorites, where he's in the other side throughout the movie, but then it shows that the events that happened near the end of the first movie were directly influenced by the version of him that was in the paranormal realm in the things that he was doing over there. I thought that was just an interesting way to tie the two movies together.
Yeah.
I enjoy stuff like that. I enjoy when they get creative. Most of the Saw movies have a decent twist at the end. Some of them are stupid, or some of them are stupid. Some of them are, like, predictable. Like the fifth one, you saw that coming a mile away. But, like, I would say the sixth one, the ending of the sixth one is on par with the ending of the first one. When you find out which person is actually that guy's family and who he is, and then the acid needles on top of it might be one of the most gnarly kills in the whole franchise.
Yeah.
Bro, I remember watching the first Insidious movie with you, and then I vowed never to watch it again, and then I ended up going to see the second one in the theaters with you guys.
Yeah, you weren't as desensitized to horror back then. That was a
wasn't.
spooky movie.
I
liked it.
You
until the Darth
desensitized me
Maul.
to horror. You desensitized me to horror a lot.
I like that movie up until the end. At the end of that movie, it becomes like an action chase. It's like a chase thing.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with
know.
that.
See, that was my problem with, like, the first Outlast game versus Outlast 2. The first Outlast, while it has a lot of chase scenes, it is mostly focused on making you as uncomfortable as humanly possible in a psychological sense. The first one, like, the developers even said in the first game they went out to break your mind, in the second game they went out to break your spirit. And that's true, because the first game has you're going through dark corridors, you don't know when the next ooga booga might happen, you're all tense, and the atmosphere and the green camera filter, and you gotta, take care of the batteries because you don't want to be left in the dark because that's when bad things happen. You got resource management. In the second game, you're just running from everything all the goddamn time. There's hardly any stealth. It's mostly just run. It's mostly just something roars at you and you run from it constantly, and it genuinely pissed me off after a while. And I think that was kind of what they set out to do, because it did. It broke me. If you go back and watch my Let's Play, there are parts where I'm genuinely screaming at that game. Not out of fear, but out of genuine frustration and exhaustion. That game exhausted me. I felt like I did like a fucking 17-mile run after playing that shit.
Oh yeah, I remember your Let's Plays.
Yeah, that game almost physically hurt to play. And I'm not saying that it's a bad game, I'm just saying that the way that it affected me personally, it was almost too much. And a lot of people say the first one is too much, but for me the second one was too much. It just didn't hit the same vibes in the right way. And I'm not even going to touch Outlast Trials, because it's if you want the true ending, you have to do like the difficult challenges, and it's like multiplayer focused, and I don't care. But I have watched a explanation of the story for it. So,
has everyone here seen Midsummer?
Yes,
I have not seen Midsummer.
Ooh, you have the chance, because they just announced that they're putting the director's cut out into theaters soon.
Oh, so
really?
Nick, you know how you liked Hereditary?
Yeah, Hereditary was good, but it was also very cringe.
It's so here's the best way to put this. A24 horror movies, for the most part, and especially Hereditary and Midsummer, because they have the same director, that's why I bring it up. They have this not necessarily found footage feel, but they have this like down-to-earth kind of feel to them, where all the characters in their movies feel like real people rather than like actors. Like in a lot of slasher movies, you have everybody's like a caricature, they all fit like a trope, and you can kind of pick out who's gonna die like immediately, like like the kind of shit Until Dawn was making fun of.
Yes.
So
love that game.
I guess the word I heard for it on Dead Meat is like glossy teen horror. But A24 horror movies have more of a down-to-earth kind of gritty vibe to them, so that everyone feels like a real person. So that the family drama in that movie feels real, and it makes it uncomfortable to watch, and that is definitely 100% intentional. Granted, that movie falls under demon possession. That's basically like the whole plot of the movie is someone being conditioned to be a vessel for a demon. But within that, the whole thing is a metaphor for mental health. And that's why it's so uncomfortable to watch, because and because the acting is so good that the emotions feel real too.
Yeah.
And it's just something about the way Ty West directs stuff. So I actually put Hereditary and Midsommar on the same level because they both feel that way to me. They both gave me the same feelings watching them.
That makes sense.
This feels less like I'm watching a movie and more like I'm watching like somebody's phone footage of what happened.
Right.
Okay, well, question for those who have seen Midsummer, and this won't be a spoiler because we don't have to go into detail about it, and it's just a matter of opinion anyway, but do you think our character got a happy ending?
For her, yes. The final girl got a happy ending. For her, you really can't answer that without spoilers if you want to give it the right answer.
Yeah, like I said, it could just be a yes or no question.
I think, yeah.
There are details. There are a lot of details that lead up to why I think yes. Just foreshadowing and other stuff in the movie.
I will say
and her mental state by that point of the movie.
In the universe of the movie itself, yes, but in reality, like if something like this were to happen in real life, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. Cult's bad. Cult not good. But yeah. For the point the movie was trying to convey, technically, yes. Technically. But that's one of those, that's why I like it, though, because that's one of those ambiguous, did they win or did they not? It's kind of both, really, endings,
It's very nuanced.
Yeah, it's a nuance, that's the word. It's nuanced, it's very, in the area of black and white, it falls in the gray, and I do appreciate that. About
it also just shows how easily anyone can fall into a cult. Like nobody is too smart to join a cult.
And so yeah, on the subject of A24 horror movies, like I said, I talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but yeah, I think you guys will Talk to Me when you finally see that one. The best thing I can say about it is that much like Hereditary is a metaphor for mental health, and X is a metaphor for the X Factor. It's literally in the title of the movie. And just society's views towards sex and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, The Babadook is a metaphor for grief, but you remember watching that one.
Yes. So
I feel like I need to give that one another chance, though, because a lot of the horror movie podcasts I listen to do really enjoy that one, and I feel like I was maybe unfair on it, but we were also
I just think it's funny.
Not in a good state of mind to be watching that one.
Yeah, that one had some unintentionally funny moments, but what I was going to say is, Talk to Me is a metaphor for drug use, where instead of being addicted to drugs and alcohol, people become addicted to communicating with the dead. And it's very interesting how they frame it in the movie. There's a montage scene that's very similar to what you would see in a party movie, where they're getting drunk and all that, but instead it's a montage of everybody taking their turn at doing the ghost game, and they're almost legitimately getting high off of it. They're enjoying it. It is a very interesting take on the whole ghost genre, and I think you guys will really enjoy it when you finally watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just the first half of the movie. There's a tonal whiplash halfway through, and you'll know it when you see it, and it's where the more emotional parts and the realness of the character's acting starts to shine through. Also, this one takes place in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, some real good acting in this one.
I'm kind of glad that we're stepping away from trauma porn horror movies for a little bit and just kind of getting more unhinged things like Megan.
This is the other
Megan
thing
was so good.
Yes, it was. I loved every minute of it.
I can't wait for the sequel.
That's the only other thing. That's the only other thing I want to say about Talk to Me is that the violence and gore in this movie is very scarce. So when it does happen, it is immediately shocking. It's more effective when it does happen because of how sparse it is in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very effective, especially for what it means for the story. So, yeah, very well done movie. I I can't remember who the director for this one was, but I think it's a returner from one of A24's earlier movies, because they all have different directors. Ty West did X and Pearl and is also going to do Maxine, I believe.
Yep.
And
Okay.
on that same note, Talk to Me, I recently found out was, much like X and Pearl, secretly filmed with a prequel side-by-side that'll be coming out next year. This movie is filmed like a regular movie, and they do some really cool stuff with the camera in it, actually. Some really interesting camera tricks that I really appreciated from a cinematography standpoint. But
Okay.
but the prequel movie is going to be about the guy who had the hand before them, and it's going to be done in a not necessarily found footage, but what they're calling screen life style, where the whole thing is done through the cameras of phones and webcams and shit like that, like Unfriended
Yeah.
was.
Did you know Ty West was one of the characters in the movie You're Next?
Was
I
he?
did not. That's one I really like. All the gore aside,
He is the first kill. Not the neighbors at the cold opening, but when they're all at the dinner table and he's looking out the window, he's the one wearing a scarf and gets the arrow through his head.
Okay.
That's Ty West.
that was actually a good. I really like Your Next because that one was a very good genre subversion movie where the final girl can actually hold her own throughout the whole movie and kind of flips the script on the killers. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like
You know,
they, they end up being scared of her, you know?
This is probably a really shitty comparison, but I kind of like compare Your Next to like The Purge.
I can see why, because of the masks and
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I think it's actually more in line with is Ready or Not.
I was just gonna bring that up. I think that is one of those movies where it's an example of a twist that completely makes the movie.
Yes.
You will never see the actual ending of that movie coming, and it is all the better for it. It is phenomenal.
I don't
Yes.
think I've seen that one.
Do
yet.
yourself
You
a favor.
definitely
That
gotta
needs,
watch that one.
That needs to be high up on your list. That
I
movie
would-
is
What's it-
phenomenal. Ready or Not.
Ready
What's
or
it
Not.
called?
Ready or Not.
It came out in 2019.
Yep.
2019.
Yep.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Your basic setup for that one is that a bride is coming into a family where they have to play a game in order for them to become a member of the family. It's tradition, and she pulls the Ready or Not card, which is the bad one because they have to play hide and seek, but it's a killing game. So
She
Now, is
has
this
to hide
streaming
from her.
anywhere?
she has to hide from her in-laws as they're trying to kill her in this movie. It's mostly horror, but also some parts comedy.
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Is this
It looks
streaming
like you
anywhere?
can watch it on Hulu.
Hulu? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably honestly one of the better, obviously I can't. Yeah, I agree with Ryan on the twist, but also just like the actual ending, like the very last line in the movie might be one of the best mic
Yeah.
drop lines in horror movie history.
Yep. It's
I would
so
put
good.
it up there. I would put it up there with the ending of Knives Out, actually.
Oh, that movie is incredible too.
Yeah, not a horror movie, but also a really good one with a very almost not similar, but kind of similar setup. You
Yep.
know, the outsider versus the family. But also on the killing games note, let's talk about the killing game genre, aka Battle Royale. The one that started off was the Japanese horror movie Battle Royale, but we've had things in that vein like Hunger Games and stuff since, but we've also had horror themed stuff in that vein like Squid Game, Death Race, the Belko Experiment, which could have been better in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, Sarah had just messaged me and she wanted to mention the movie Split about the split personality with James McAvoy.
The
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan one.
Yeah, Shamalama
Yes.
Ding Dong has there are two kinds of M. Night Shyamalan movies, good and bad. There is no
Yes.
in between.
Yes.
There is no in between with him.
I will say his show Servant on Apple TV.
Yes, with Rupert Grint. Yes.
That one was a good one. I have mixed feelings about how it ended, but overall, I'd say it's worth watching.
Agreed.
I've started to watch it. I have not watched it in a while. I need to get back on it.
I have not yet gotten into it, but I will say Split it's definitely one of my favorite James McAvoy performances. He is
Yes.
very, very good in that movie. And the ending twist I didn't get because I hadn't seen Unbreakable, but it made me want to go watch Unbreakable.
I actually did a marathon, Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. When I
Okay,
was working, when I was doing the overnight security gig in Waukegan.
Glass is the only one I haven't seen yet. It's still on my list.
Oh my gosh, all three of them together, collectively, amazing movies.
But back to the Killing Game thing, and I guess we could include
Yes.
the new Peacock Twisted Metal show on this too, because it's about to turn into that in the second season.
You're not wrong.
So what, did you guys have any favorites in the Killing Game genre? I know Battle Royale, the original, is probably considered the best in this group.
I really liked Squid Game. I thought that was well done. I enjoyed the
Yeah.
plot
Squid Game was
twists in
good.
it. There's that other one that we started watching, Karissa. Do you remember? Is it Alice in Borderland?
I've heard of that.
Oh yeah.
We watched the first season. The second season of that dropped now. We just haven't watched it yet. But that one is kind of a similar concept of people basically just getting thrown into death game survival of the fittest. Almost like Battle Royale style, but like citywide.
Okay. Yeah.
A movie that I really like that kind of falls into this genre is Mayhem with Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving.
Ooh.
I know it's not.
I was going to ask you about that. Doesn't that also fall under influencer horror? Like the streamer stuff? Like,
Okay.
what was that other one you were just telling me about?
Deadstream.
Deadstream, yeah. Doesn't it fall in that category? Or like Nerve and stuff like that?
Nerve was good.
Mayhem doesn't really. It's,
not so much.
about,
Okay.
It's about a bunch of people who work in this like corporate building, and then everyone gets infected with a virus that basically turns you into just a raging asshole.
Oh, I have heard of this. It like removes your inhibitions
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, it's on. We watched it on Shudder, I think.
Okay.
There's one that I wanted to bring up. It's actually an anime, but I thought that it was really well done. Depending on whether you're trying to use the Japanese name or the English name, Mirai Nikki or Future Diary.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that one's really good.
It's all about this group of I think it's 8 or 10 people or something like that, and they all get this cell phone, and they all have a certain kind of special power that they can use for it. But they basically they'll get a text saying it's their turn to die, and they have to survive the attack that they now know is coming their way. But they're not sure who is coming after them or how it's going to play out or things like that. I watched it. It's been a while since I watched it, but that one was really well done.
Okay. Yeah, the Belko experiment I liked, but was a little disappointed in just because, the premise made it seem like they were going to be a little more creative and try to find ways to kill each other off with what they could find laying around the office, and instead most people in that just end up dying by the guns or the exploding collars. And
They also set up somebody to be the final girl, and then she gets killed, which I don't normally have a problem with. It's just
oh yeah, they
the
did her
execution of it was really stupid.
Yeah, it was really poorly done.
dirty. She made a out of character choice.
Yeah.
That led to that, and it was just such an instant and anticlimactic death.
Yeah. I'll say that in terms of the Belko experiment, I expected more out of it. I felt that way about the first Purge movie. I left that movie and I was
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't what I thought it would be. Then they started coming out with more, and they did a really good job with that. I think that the Purge is kind of one of those series that just gets better the more they do.
Which is a rare case because usually it's the opposite.
Yep.
And that is a good one for that. Or in the case of some movies like Saw and Final Destination, the quality jumps around: good, bad, okay, bad, good.
Yeah.
I will say the first Purge movie, the first movie, The Purge, because there is a movie called The First Purge, which is just confusing.
the prequel.
The first movie is better on a rewatch when you know what to expect.
Yeah.
The first one is what I would call a home invasion movie, so I would put it up there with the Strangers or
Yeah.
stuff like that, or like even like I guess Your Next would be technically a home invasion movie. That's what I would put that one under. Whereas
Kinda.
Something
the other
like that, yeah.
Purge movies are more of like I don't even know what to call them, survival horror. Because because they open up into like the whole city and then the whole nation and then the whole world. One of them takes place in Mexico, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Forever Purge. Yeah.
Yeah, the Forever Purge.
That one takes place in Texas, and then they're trying to get to Mexico.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
And the Purge movies are always really on point with whatever's going on politically at the time they come out as well. It's always been a big thing that they've done, too. I appreciate them for that. I was also thinking in the terms of the Killing Games type stuff. I'm not sure if these fall under that or if they fall under, like, puzzle horror. But there is a movie called Would You Rather, where a bunch of people who are down on their luck, money-wise, get invited to a fancy dinner by a rich bureaucrat type guy, and he forces them to torture themselves and or others in order to earn some money. And the things that he makes them do, it starts off simple, like, would you rather shock yourself or shock the person next to you? But then it becomes some really over-the-top stuff, like, would you rather take 5 lashings from the whip or take a razor blade to your eye? That kind of shit. And as people start dropping off, it becomes a case of who's going to be the final girl type situation in this one. It's really good. It's actually got the rich guy's kid is played by Robin Taylor Lord, who was Penguin in Gotham.
Okay.
And he is just as much of a Weasley little snobby, smarmy, you want to punch him so bad character in this movie. So yeah, it is definitely worth watching, and I can't remember who the main actress. Oh, Brittany Snow, I think, is actually the main actress in this.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
There's another
I
movie.
loved her in X.
Go ahead.
There was another movie, kind of like this. I watched it on Netflix a while ago. It's called Truth or Dare.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that
Truth
falls
or
under the
Dare
same category.
with Lucy Hale. As
With the weird ass smiles.
Yes.
There was
a harmless game of truth or dare among friends turns deadly when someone or something begins to punish those who tell a lie or refuse the dare.
That one kind of reminds me of Unfriended in a way.
It's so good, but it's not streaming anywhere, right?
Or like Wolf Creek is actually like no, not Wolf Creek, Cry Wolf. Cry Wolf, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Wolf
was
Creek is a completely different kind of movie.
Yes, it is. Wasn't that
Australians
the
are
one with a
mean.
young Kristen Stewart in it, and there was like
Twilight.
It was kind of a. I'm thinking of this
Kristen
one that takes
Stewart
place.
was only in Twilight.
I think there's this one that takes place in a mansion, and they're being like hunted or terrorized by somebody. I think the dad is played by Dennis Quaid. Maybe.
Wait.
I remember a scene with a bunch of snakes coming out of the walls and shit.
Cry Wolf has Jared
which
Padalecki
movie?
in it.
Wolf Creek or Wolf Creek Manor or some shit like that.
I've not
Well,
seen.
Wolf Creek is an Australian horror movie, which is based off of a real-life serial killer.
Yes, no, okay, that one is the one with the Australia. Okay, so I can't remember the name of the movie I'm thinking of, but I do think it's similar. I think it's like Wolf Creek Manor or some shit like that.
There's
Okay.
Or
I'm looking at the page on IMDb for Cry Wolf, and I had to look. I scrolled down to look at the cast list, and it has. I noticed it had Jared Padalecki in it.
Cold Creek Manor, that's the one I'm thinking of. It's called Cold Creek Manor.
So there was a
And yes, Jared Padalecki was in Cry Wolf. That was another slasher movie that was like it had like a twist mystery about who the killer was. Type of
You remember
deal.
Jared
It was based on
Padalecki in
Chainmail.
what was it, House of Wax?
Yes.
Yes, the
Yes,
House
I
of
do.
Wax remake. The House of
Yes.
Wax remake.
Yeah.
He was
He got done
also
dirty in that.
he was also in the Friday the 13th Killer Cut.
Yeah,
Oh, the Friday the
the two-
13th
the-
remake.
Yeah, the remake. Yeah.
I remember that.
And then
Yeah.
You had
Jensen
something on
Ackles was
the-
in the My Bloody Valentine remake, which
Yes.
came out like I think the same year.
Sure.
You
did.
had something on the
2009.
Killing Game note, Ryan.
It was actually on Home Invasion. I didn't want to
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to forget to bring this up because I think that I don't see enough discussion on this movie. Funny Games.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that
That's-
the main character of Funny Games needs to play the Joker at some point because he would do that absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, those two brothers are really messed up in that movie.
That movie
and there
is so incredibly well done, though.
Yes, it is. And even
That
like
movie was also a shot-for-shot remake of the original one. It's just the original one is in, like, Swedish or something.
yeah, and it is
So it doesn't matter which one you watch, really.
some very interesting fourth wall stuff in that movie too.
Yeah. But I didn't want to forget to bring that one up because that movie left an impression on me for sure.
It's considered up there among like some of the harder to watch horror movies or some of the like most messed up ones.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd watch it
Definitely
again,
watched
but
once, never again.
yeah, I don't know that I'd watch it again, but it was really, really good.
That's how I feel about Hereditary. As much as I like that one, it's too hard to watch more than once because it's such a difficult. It's too hard to watch those characters suffer the way they do.
Yeah, it really is.
It's very upsetting.
Yes.
They
like
they
it's
did a
really
great
good.
job with the advertising for that, though.
Yeah.
They really
Yeah,
did.
and what I'm saying is not by any means a knock against the movie. By the way, if anything, it's a compliment. It's just that takes you to an emotionally dark place. That movie does.
Well, the entire trailer makes you think that a certain character is the main character, and that character dies very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that too. And that's probably one of the most memorable deaths, if that's the one I'm thinking of in recent horror movies too.
Yeah.
The telephone pole scene.
Yep.
Yep.
I feel like this
yeah.
could be a good segue into what's everyone's watched once, never again horror movies.
Yeah.
Not
I mean,
necessarily
Yeah.
because they're bad, but just like they made you so uncomfortable, you just don't want to sit through that again.
Okay, so I'd have to say for me that would have to be The Grudge because the death rattle it's cringe and it freaks me the fuck out every time.
Yeah,
That's
that is a very unsettling noise.
Yeah,
but Japanese horror ain't nothing to fuck with. too.
Exactly.
And believe it or not, the original Japanese version of said movie is even scarier.
I want nothing to do with it.
The same goes for The Ring.
Ringu.
The Ring was good.
And I forget the name of it, but there's this one about this girl who's a photographer that has this ghost chasing her. And I saw it a
I
long
know
time
what you're
ago.
talking about.
I distinctly remember one scene where she's using the camera flash to see where the ghost is in the room because the lights are out, and it's the freakiest scenes I've ever seen because I'm one of those people that like
Was that Shudder?
It might be Shudder, Shutter, yeah.
Yeah, from the executive producers of The Grudge and The Ring, came out in 2008.
Okay, yep, that would be the one. I remember that.
Rings, yeah.
There is another Ring. Yeah, there was a new Ring movie too called Rings. That one they made the video viral so everyone in the world saw it.
Yeah, they sure did.
Huh. So hang on. There's one thing that says there's a Shudder that came out in 2008, but there's a different Shudder that came out in 2004, possibly. So I'm not sure.
Shudder.
Because IMDb has Shudder listed as 2008, Wikipedia has Shudder listed as 2004. I'm not sure.
Yeah, one of those might be the original, and the other one the American remake.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, the plots seem like they're the same. I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
probably that.
There's a large portion of horror movie remakes that were originally in other language, like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, is a big one, I would say, and I mean, oh yeah, I did have one more thing that I think about it in the killing/puzzle games section. There was an underground horror movie. I talked about it in my Hidden Gems episode a while back, I think, or maybe it was something, but it was called The Final, where a bunch of like nerds that get bullied and everything trick all the popular kids into what they think they're going to is like a raging Halloween party, and they end up all being like victims of these kids that have poisoned and kidnapped them, and they all wake up like chained to the floor and stuff, and they force them to do torturous things to each other to survive as sort of like it's a revenge/killing game/puzzle horror movie, and
Okay.
it was one of those like underground after dark horror movies. You know, it was like published by After Dark Pictures, so it might be hard to find a good copy of it, but I definitely recommend it if you've never seen it. It was I consider it an underrated one of it. It's like a horror version of Revenge of the Nerds, quite honestly.
Okay.
Is what I would put it under. Yeah, it's one of those horror movies too where there's not really many characters worth sympathizing with because like the bullies were bullies in the beginning, but the nerds are also torturing them, so there's no good guy to root for. It's one of those ones you just kind of like sit back and enjoy it and kind of just see where it goes, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so on that subject of remakes, good ones, bad ones, what are horror movie remakes that you really like, and what are ones that you think are really terrible?
I really enjoyed the remake of Carrie.
The Chloe Grace Moretz one?
Yes, the 2013 Carrie, yes.
Me too. I like that one.
I like how they modernized it. Too.
Both of the It movies.
Yes, yep, 100%. Bill Skarsgård on point.
Yep.
I fell asleep watching the first one and didn't make it to the second one.
The fact that
you
Karissa
gotta go
actually
back.
was willing to watch those with me only once.
Yeah.
She's only watched them once. I've tried to get her to watch them with me again, and she won't. But
Nope.
I think that speaks volumes to how good they are.
Yeah,
Well, I
I'll
guess-
have to go back and watch both the It movies.
I guess that's Carissa's answer, by the way, for the ones you won't go back to, horror movies-wise.
Oh, I have several of those.
Movies in general.
Like Speak No Evil, which came out last year. Funny Games, Eden Lake, Mother. Yeah, I have several of those movies.
Okay, yeah, I've heard Mother is a difficult watch.
Oh yeah.
It's on my list, but like I feel like I have to be in the right mindset for it. It's going to be one of those like Hereditary style ones where it's like upsetting because I can't. It's
Another
probably
one
especially
we
for
recently
introverts.
watched. Another one we recently watched, which would go on this list, is Beau is Afraid.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it, but it was a movie.
Okay. Oh, so just not worth watching. Again, nothing about it that makes you like, oh, I can't sit through that more than once. I've heard this a lot about even people who do like a rewatch of the Saw movies will often skip through the twisting crucifix in the third one.
That's like one of my favorite traps.
Just because it's so hard
rack.
to watch.
Yeah, it's really hard. I didn't pay much attention during the actual traps for a lot of the rewatch.
That's fair, too. That's
You
the other
fell
thing.
asleep on a rewatch of 7.
That does not bode well for 7.
I think he was just tired.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
was exhausted.
I still to this day don't understand why that garage trap with Chester Bennington and the rest of them was banned from the previous movies. Like it didn't really feel that much more over the top than anything else they had done up to that point. So
No.
I don't know why they kept telling him it was too much. It really wasn't, unless it was before that and they had to tone it down to put it in the movie.
Right.
But either way,
You know, kind of like how they apparently had to keep pushing back South Park: The Stick of Truth.
yeah.
Tone it down before it can be released.
So there are quite a few horror movie remakes I like, and a few I don't. I do really like the Last House on the Left remake, particularly
Yes.
for the garbage disposal scene in particular.
Yes.
But also, that's one of
Microwave
those.
at the end.
That's one of those revenge movies where you're rooting for the protagonist the whole time because the parents are getting revenge on the assaulters.
I know I brought it up earlier, but the Rob Zombie Halloween remakes I think we're decent.
Okay. Yeah, and
Evil Dead remake was good.
yeah, the
13.
2013 one. Have you seen Evil Dead Rise, the one that takes place in the apartment building?
I have. Ryan hasn't.
I started to watch it Friday night, but because I had some personal things going on and I got stuck in my head, I needed a comedy, so I turned on the new Jennifer Lawrence movie, No Hard Feelings.
Okay.
I don't think Ryan's seen any of the Evil Dead movies, come to think of it.
I have not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I made it halfway through Evil Dead Rise before I turned it off.
They are. I
It
want to
was good
say,
from what I saw.
yeah, they're kind of tongue-in-cheek movies. They're very self-aware.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, I mean, Ash versus Evil Dead was basically a comedy, but
The 2013 one is just really mean, and I feel like
Yeah.
Evil Dead Rise is kind of a combination of being mean but still, like, being humorous like the original Evil Dead.
yeah, and Evil Dead Rise has a lot of interesting callbacks too, which is kind of nice, for fans of the original. But yeah, the remake is also broke a record for the most fake blood ever used in a horror movie too.
Yep.
For that rain scene. So, yeah, there are some rough watches. I feel like every movie that takes place in a cabin, like Evil Dead and Cabin Fever, always ends up with like a really difficult to watch scene of someone flaying themselves alive.
The leg shaving scene in Cabin Fever.
Oh God. An early
was
Eli
disgusting.
Roth work, and he just went on to be more and more gross. You can tell him and Quentin Tarantino are friends because they both
Right.
they both love blood in their movies. They love the over the top
Uh-huh.
gore. And then Eli Roth did Hostel and Green Inferno, which was his tribute
my
to
God.
Green Inferno was his tribute to that Cannibal Holocaust movie.
The Hostel movies were fucking brutal.
Yeah, put Hostel 2 on the list of movies that I liked but never want to sit through again.
Okay, there was one part in the second Hostel film that had me like, because that was the first Hostel movie that I actually sat down and watched. Because I went to a Halloween party in high school dressed as Michael Myers, and the host of the party put on the second Hostel film, and the one part, you can probably cut this part out if this is too graphic, but
You're talking about the bathtub part, right? We're all know
No,
what you're
I'm talking
No?
about I'm talking about the part where dude had his penis severed off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't censor this show, so you're fine. That was actually one of the
Okay.
better parts of the movie when she cut that guy's dong off and fed it to the dogs and then let him bleed out. That was some final girl vengeance that I loved.
That
Because
was
my
some
biggest
brutal
issue
shit.
with the second movie is that the guy who survives the first one dies almost immediately. But
Okay.
they give a happier ending to the protagonist of the second one, which I was okay for. And then the third one is just dumb. The only good thing about the third movie is the scene where they cut that guy's face off while he's still alive.
Oh
That
my
is-
god, that was insane.
But the
one
rest
part
of
that
it was
really got
stupid.
me in the one part that really got me in the first one at the very end was when dude cut dude's like Achilles heel from under the bathroom stall.
No, that's actually you're mixing two scenes together. The guy gets his Achilles tendon split as one of the torture methods early in the movie. That's one of
Okay.
his friends who later gets killed. The survivor ends up cutting off this guy's hand that he sticks under the stall because he baits him with the card, and then
Okay. It's just
because he's
it's
one of
just
the
been a while
hunters.
since I've
Yeah.
seen it then.
Because he's one of
I,
the
like,
hunters
go-
and he kills him. But that's
That
one of those
goes-
like technically that's a killing game, I think, because like the whole point of Hostel is that these rich elite people are paying to have people kidnapped so that they can torture them. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not unlike the setup for the escape room movies where they pay to have people, but they're not kidnapped. These people willingly go to the escape room, but it's just like
Yeah.
it's a similar setup, where
I'd have
the
to
people
say-
behind it are a bunch of evil rich guys.
That any of the Hostel movies would have to go under the list of movies that I have no interest in watching again because I cringe way too fucking hard while watching the torture scenes. I tense up. It's no, I'm good.
So, Karissa, I know you have a take on one of the worst horror remakes.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that was the one you didn't like, right?
How did I know
Nope.
this was gonna be talked about? Okay, yep, yeah, I'll have to agree with that.
Not that, like, maybe 7 episodes ago you said you liked that movie, so...
So I did like it, but at the same time I didn't.
Fair enough.
They could have done Freddy Krueger's makeup to look more like the original. He looked more like a mutated burn victim
Yeah.
in the remake.
I think there are more
If
problems.
that makes sense.
More problems with the remake than that. You wanna tell us what they are, Karissa?
I mean, it should be a red flag when your main actress Rooney Mara says that after she auditioned, she was hoping that she didn't get the role.
Oh, oof. Ouch.
Yeah,
Yikes!
and was kind of disappointed when she got a call back.
Wow.
Ouch. That's brutal.
Also, I don't like that they were like teeter-tottering between Freddy Krueger being a child abuser or not, which like in the sense of a horror movie, I don't care if somebody's an abuser, but they just couldn't make up their minds until the last second in that one.
Yeah.
Pick a lane, and stick with it.
Exactly.
You have an opinion on good and bad remakes, Ryan, on horror?
I'll be honest, there's a lot of things that I've either only seen the remake or only seen the original of, so
So can't really draw that comparison too well, huh? I mean, that's
I've
that's
introduced him to a lot of horror movies.
I mean, that's fair. It's a pretty big genre. So, okay, with that in mind, it's funny because you brought up the whole the actress didn't want to be in that movie. It made me think of an actress who actually did want to be in a movie and actually beat out, I want to say, somewhere in the lower hundreds of other auditions. The young girl who played the one of the main protagonists in Doctor Sleep. The secondary protagonist opposite Ewan McGregor's character.
Yeah.
She beat out several other people for that role, and I would put Doctor Sleep up there with. I think I consider that movie a legacy sequel, and I would say that it is one of the better ones. Actually,
I have not seen Doctor Sleep.
It actually fixed a lot of things that Stephen King didn't like about The Shining.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Doctor Sleep movie is different from the book, but there is a reason for that. Because Mike Flanagan had to basically make a sequel to the movie The Shining, while also fixing things that Stanley Kubrick, like, in Stephen King's eyes, did wrong with the movie.
There is a scene in this movie that is hard for people to sit through because the acting is so good. One particular character, when they're being stabbed to death, the kid's acting is so good that it actually made the actors uncomfortable, and they teared up on set and had to walk away for a while. So I will warn anyone who hasn't seen this movie about that scene going into it, because it is strong. If you have the movie on too loud, like in an apartment building or something, someone might think someone's actually getting murdered. It's
Jesus
that good.
Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the ending of the movie Doctor Sleep, not the very, very ending, but like the ending of when they're at the hotel again, is how the book The Shining ended.
Okay.
Yeah, they changed the ending of Doctor Sleep in the movie, but I think it actually plays to the movie's strengths. Even if it gets kind of fan servicey and actually ends up being one of the weaker parts of the movie overall, but it has some really good moments in it. You know,
there was another movie I wanted to mention real quick. That was like, to me, was an original idea. It's called Malignant. It's currently streaming on Max. It's Madison is paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment worsens as she discovers that these waking dreams are in fact terrifying realities. This one, this one was so good and so well done. Probably one of the scariest
James
movies.
Wan picture. Too.
Probably one of the scariest movies I've seen in a long time, and it's definitely an original idea.
Yeah, James Wan just kind of pops out every decade or so and lets everybody know what the popular genre of horror movies is going to be
That
next.
was-
Right, he keeps revolutionizing genres because he did like the first Saw movie. He did The Conjuring, I want to say.
Speaking
He also
of
did Dead Silence.
speaking
not
of The
long after
Conjuring,
Saw.
I don't mean to drift off from movies, but right now, going on at Six Flags Great America, they have a haunted house dedicated to the first Conjuring, the first Conjuring film.
Oh wow, okay.
And they also have, simultaneously while that's going on, they also have a haunted house dedicated to the new Saw X film.
So we actually are gonna drift off from movies here because we are running low on time. So we talked a lot about horror movies, and there is like you could. I mean, if you really want to dig deep into everything that they have to offer in the horror movie department, you would be here for days. You'd
Yeah.
do like several episodes in a whole. So you could do one episode per movie itself. So, let's go into the niches. We'll just, for the sake of time, combine TV shows, video games, books, music, all that shit together. Let's just talk about some of our favorite stuff in that. Obviously, like, the video game stuff is more my side of thing. The music is more like you guys' side, all that stuff. But I know we've all seen some horror-themed TV shows, like The
Supernatural.
Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. Yep, Supernatural.
Stranger
stuff like
Things.
that. Stranger Things,
Yep.
True Blood, all that kind of shit. So,
Oh yes, True Blood.
What's your favorite? What's among the best? Some of the best for you.
I'd have to say Supernatural, hands down. And Justin, I have you to thank for that. You introduced me to the show back in 2011.
Yeah,
And
something like that.
when I finished the show, when I finished season 15, the last episode, bro, I bawled my eyes out.
I haven't seen
I-
the last couple. I think I'm like a season and a half away from the ending at this point.
Okay, so then
Yeah,
I
so
won't spoil
no spoilers
anything.
because they're still
No
watching
spoiler,
it.
right,
but
no, I'm not spoiling anything. All I will say is you're gonna want to have a tissue box ready.
I mean, that's to be expected. It's a long.
Yes.
All I can say to that is that I made the mistake of thinking that the penultimate episode, the second to last one, was the last one, and the way that one ended pissed me off, and I thought that was going to be the ending of the show originally, and I was angry. But then the actual ending came, and I was happy with it. So, that's the best way to put it. It ended the best way it possibly could for the show that
Good.
it is and the characters that are in it. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, I agree. Supernatural. It was definitely more horror back when it had like the Scooby-Doo vibes of Monster of the Week formula set up.
Speaking of
before
the
it started having overarching stories.
The Scooby-Doo
Um,
crossover episode, Scooby Natural, was by far my favorite episode of the show.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting one.
That was that was top tier. That one almost felt like fan service.
I was always a big fan of the weirdly creative episodes, like the one where they go through a bunch of different TV shows. Any of the ones where the prankster is involved.
Yes.
Or the Groundhog Day themed one.
Yes.
Where one of them keeps dying every day.
And then you got the
and it
episode
repeats,
where they
yeah.
go into the psych ward and
Pudding!
the funniest pudding.
Yeah. There's
Yes.
also the episode where everyone dies in a cartoony way, like their heart bumps out of their chest or an anvil falls on them. That was.
I like the
pretty
one
good,
where
too.
Dean loses all of his courage.
That was scary.
Yeah, yep. But they definitely did for a while there. The older episodes, which definitely had that like early 2000s feel to
Yes.
them, like Charmed,
Mhm.
you know. Just the way it was filmed, and like you can see like the film grain on the visual, like you know, when you remaster things that were old on Blu-ray, there is some visual artifacts that carry over like film grain, and you can tell.
Mhm.
But like it I love that they did like the Monster of the Week setup with like, you know, different ghosts and like the Wendigos
Yes.
and stuff like
Yes.
that. There's not a fantasy monster or creature in any lore that wasn't touched in that show.
No, that
honestly.
everything was touched
They
on
even
in that show.
had like Leviathans and shit.
Yes.
Fun fact: the leader of the Leviathans, I want to say that was season 7.
Okay.
The leader of the Leviathans, James Patrick Stewart, is the voice of Xigbar in the Kingdom Hearts games.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Felicia Day also had a huge role
Yep,
in that show.
I love
Yeah,
her.
she did.
Too.
Yes, yeah, she did have a really big role in that show for a while.
Yeah, I won't get into any spoilers, but like, you know, a lot of things when they start running out of ideas start dealing with very weird shit, and this show is no exception to that. But I do love it. Yeah, I wasn't there a Purge TV series?
Yes,
to
and it
go
was
along
actually
with
There
the
really good.
was.
movies?
Yes, there was
Yes,
a
there
Purge
was.
show. Yes.
Okay. And I'm a big fan of the Netflix series. I haven't seen Bly Manor yet, but the series The Haunting of Hill House, I enjoyed that. I really do. I think the tall man,
Bly Manor
the
was
tall
good.
man, the tall man in that was really creepy. Like, he was well done in that show.
Did you see his show Midnight Club?
No, I have not.
No, I don't think so.
That one's good too.
Another really good
Well, that one's also Mike Flanagan.
another show. Can't go without mentioning American Horror Story.
Yeah, that one, it's like an anthology series, so every season is a different story, and some of them do tie together, but there are definitely like good seasons and bad seasons in that show.
I'd have to say my all-time favorite season is season 1, Murder House.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
by far my favorite season. That and Freak Show.
Yeah, I like the Freak Show season.
It's
I like
Carissa's
the
favorite.
Coven.
Freak Show?
I like.
No. I tried to watch it. I just couldn't
Is it
anymore.
because was it because of Twisty?
The clown?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked Freak Show. I liked Coven. Didn't care for Asylum.
Oh,
that
I loved
much.
Asylum. I loved the Asylum season. Yes.
And then let's see what else they had. Oh, I did like the hotel one, which is based on the real life Cecil Hotel.
Yeah. And didn't that season have Lady Gaga in it?
It did as a vampire.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I like that one. Roanoke was just okay. That one was just okay. The only thing I remember about that season is the short guy getting disemboweled, and they pulled his intestines out like a long rope.
Jeez, that show has gotten
But-
brutal.
Yeah, so Roanoke was okay, but the Apocalypse season where they tied several other seasons together was pretty cool. But then Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson don't really do that show anymore, so now the new main character is Emma Roberts. She's the
Okay.
new reoccurring main person.
Also, the Evan.
They started.
Speaking of Evan
She
Peters,
started in Coven, but she was in the they did a slasher season about a camp that's reminiscent of Friday the 13th and all that, and she was the main one of that one, and I think Billy Lord was in it too. And they were both in Scream Queens, which is done by the same guy.
Speaking of Evan Peters, though, I can't not talk about Dahmer.
Oh yeah, that's right. That is him.
Dahmer was good. The first episode was really hard for me to get through, but I made it through all the way to the end of the show, and it was really good.
So I know this is really more my thing, and I play a lot of indie horror games, and it's no question that among my favorites are games like Soma, Outlast, and Resident Evil 7. But does anyone here have any horror games that they've played or watched that they liked? Really good story or just overall creative, enjoyable game. Maybe they hit the horror feeling on the head for you. You actually felt uncomfortable playing it, that kind of thing, or any reason really.
Does Undertale count?
No.
Guess depending on how you play it.
I mean, maybe the boss at the end, yeah, but that's the stuff of nightmares. But I don't think I'd count the actual game. But you watched The Quarry, you watched The Devil in Me. I know you played Until Dawn.
Yep.
Those are all up there.
Until
Stray
Dawn.
gave me an existential crisis.
Yeah, I would count Stray as horror at times. I would put that in there.
But I was not expecting that game to literally give me an existential crisis, but it did.
Yes. Did you finish it then?
Oh yeah, I finished it. I
Oh.
finished it in basically one sitting. I started playing it. I played like halfway or so through it until I was too tired to play anymore. I went to sleep. I woke up. I turned on the TV and I finished the game.
That game has some intense moments when those little parasite bugs are chasing
I
you
also
around.
just recently rewatched. My buddy Matt had experienced the first half of the game with me, but he hadn't seen the rest of it, and he didn't know what happened. So he was over here the other day, and he actually played through the entire game in one sitting. So I watched him play through that game again and experience it for the first time.
I didn't.
My most memorable horror game experience is definitely playing through Resident Evil 7 in VR.
Dread Halls.
Because after a while, I felt like, well, I'm talking about something I actually finished.
No, that is my most memorable horror experience for you.
That's fair. But I just like after a while, because it is like a full length AAA game, and it was one of the first like big AAA games to be in VR on top of it, and so it's a full like 8 to 10 hour experience at least. And after a while of so much back and forth doing puzzles and stuff, I started being able to navigate that Baker Mansion as easily as my own home, and it's just like you get this awareness of the presence around you, like this atmospheric like spatial awareness that, you know, you start hearing noises in the distance and you're like, well, better reload my gun. You know, it's and with that too, like the aiming being right in the center of your vision made the aiming a lot easier in that game, and you know, being able to realistically peek around corners and look over my shoulder, like I felt like I was actually in that world fighting for my life after a while. I got into it. There's a boss battle where it's like you and the boss both have a chainsaw, and if you swing it at the same time, the sparks go flying and you get in each other's faces, and it just gave me this huge pump of adrenaline. Like it after a while it stopped being scary and started being more like, all right, I got a shotgun, I got a machine gun, I got a flamethrower, time to kick some ass. But in the beginning, I was definitely pissing myself in that one. I will never forget that experience for sure. It's one of those things I wish I could erase my memory of and relive again, you know. It's so good.
Man.
What about you, Nick? Is it Until Dawn?
It's a couple games actually. Until Dawn, Beyond Two Souls.
Oh yeah, I would count that. I would
Yeah,
count that.
Beyond Two Souls has like almost like a sci-fi horror feel to it. More towards the end, but at the beginning, it's like more like it is paranormal, but it's like more like more of a sci-fi horror. But yeah, I'd
it's got a
say.
mix.
But Until Dawn, I could easily play through, no problem. I've played some of The Quarry, and I haven't touched The Quarry since I was in.
I'm excited to hear what you think when
my
you get
gosh.
back to it, when you finish.
Yeah, no, I've
And
definitely.
you started that too, didn't you, Ryan?
Yeah, I haven't finished it yet though.
Okay, yeah, I'll be excited to hear what you both think, because Karissa watched the whole movie mode playthrough of it. So at least she knows the basics of the story. Obviously, Who Lives and Dies will, you know, your mileage may vary, but... Okay, how did you like that one overall, by the way, Karissa?
The Quarry?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was as good as Until Dawn, but it was entertaining to watch, yeah.
It was kind of nice to see some horror legends in there, though, like David Arquette and Lynn Shane.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that part's nice, at least. And then there are other familiar faces: Brenda Song, Justice Smith from Detective Pikachu.
Yes. He was Justice
yeah.
Smith was also in Jurassic World, The Fallen Kingdom, and Jurassic World Dominion.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that.
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask, I know that this is going to be more of a you guys thing, and of course, Nick, you can have some input on this too, obviously, but
Okay.
music and books, real quick, while we still have time. Karissa, I know you're a big book reader, and you've read a lot of horror and Stephen King stuff, and I know you're into a lot of horror-themed bands, Ryan, so...
What the fuck is a book?
Yeah. But, like, what was the last horror book you read, actually?
Good question.
You read some Stephen King stuff, right?
I've read a handful of Stephen King, yes.
Okay.
There was a book that was made into a movie.
That's a lot of them.
No, there was only one.
More specifically, scary stories to tell in the dark.
Oh, yeah, that one was kind of a disappointment for me. I was expecting, maybe it's because I painted a worse picture in my head when I read those books as a kid, but
Right.
the movie itself was very tame, especially for a Guillermo del Toro joint.
Yeah.
You know? But also it was PG-13. I think it could have benefited from being rated R.
Yeah, it really could have. They
It
could have
honestly
done
felt
with
more
it.
like... It felt like an extended episode of Supernatural.
It
to
did.
be
It
honest.
really did.
But the creature designs were amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll give them that. So I did like it for that. Nostalgia alone couldn't save that one for me, though, unfortunately.
Fair.
I haven't watched the movie, but one of my favorite Stephen King books, one of my favorite horror books in general, is Cell by Stephen King.
Okay.
And apparently
Okay.
the movie was really bad, so I haven't even watched it. But I really liked the book.
Okay.
Stephen King also
sometimes-
has a really good book called The Long Walk,
Oh, yeah.
which it was written under his pen name, Richard Bachman. But that one was
Apparently-
really good.
There is a new horror movie out called The Boogeyman that is based on a Stephen King book, but I'm not sure whether or not it's meant to be a remake to the original Boogeyman horror movie or not, or if it's a different thing.
Right.
That one's based off of a short story of his.
Okay. Speaking of the short stories, did you know that Dreamcatcher and It, I think, take place in the same universe? As does oh shit, what's the one, the tower, the Dark Tower. The Dark Tower, It, and Dreamcatcher are all in a connected universe, apparently.
The Dark Tower, I haven't read that one yet, but it's my dad's favorite of his. Brings in a lot of things from the Stephen King universe.
Yeah, it's like a centerpiece to the Stephen King universe, the way Final Fantasy XIV is for that franchise. It brings, from what I understand, it introduces you to the shape-shifting aliens that is what it is, you know, but like
Yeah, the creature
You
that
see more of
Pennywise
them.
is.
yeah. And Pennywise is just the form that particular alien took, which is what I find funny about it. It itself is actually just a shape-shifting alien. But everyone remembers it as Pennywise the clown. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read anything. I've listened to... I do like to listen to some, like, horror stories, and maybe, like, sometimes, like, people will post, like, creepy short stories on Reddit that somebody on YouTube will go and read a bunch of them and stuff like that. Those I enjoy.
There was
listening to
a
in the
short
background.
story by Edgar Allan Poe that I read in high school called The Pit and the Pendulum. That was like that. That
Yes.
was where my
Yeah.
love for the pendulum trap for the Saw from Saw came into play.
I think
Yeah,
the
that's a good
creepiest I
one.
read by Edgar Allan Poe was The Telltale Heart.
Oh, the Telltale
Another
Heart
good
was
one.
another really good one. I enjoyed the Raven movie where they took where they had someone like recreate all of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories and actual crimes and shit. That was such very well done.
I don't want to give too much credit to this author because he was a racist, but H.P.
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft is responsible for cosmic horror and the character of Cthulhu, so I do have to give some credit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Bloodborne, so I do have to kind of give a little bit of credit towards
Yes.
him, but I don't.
Oh,
want
you
to.
should have mentioned Bloodborne in the video games.
I didn't.
would
I
consider
didn't think
that.
about it until just now.
I would consider that horror. That's for sure. Like, so I would consider Soulsborne in general
Yeah.
to fall in some kind of like RPG horror hybrid genre. Honestly, Yeah.
Technically,
Also-
Hollow Knight is a post-apocalyptic world when it comes to insects.
I'm kind of surprised
Yeah.
for TV shows and video games nobody mentioned The Last of Us.
Yeah, The Last of Us. Yep, we definitely should have brought that up because
Yeah.
that definitely
That's almost
falls in
low-hanging
that.
fruit at this point. If you don't like The Last of Us, there's something wrong with you.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
I enjoyed the show from what I have seen so far.
Such a good show, very accurate to the game. Everything they add is an addition rather than a problem. You know, like
Yeah.
everything they add serves to make the show better
Yes.
than the game in a lot of ways, actually. And some things that you wouldn't think would translate from a game to a show actually do translate very well, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Another good horror show that nobody else mentioned that I really like is Yellow Jackets.
It's on my list. I need to see it, but I've heard really messed up things, and it makes me excited to watch it.
Melanie Linsky is in it, and she plays the adult version of one of the characters, and she's really good in it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I would consider it horror per se, but there's a show on Paramount Plus called School Spirits where a girl is trying to solve her own murder as a ghost, and it is really, really good. It's like part horror, part comedy, part drama. I enjoyed it.
I know that you can't necessarily like have a Halloween episode without mentioning Hocus Pocus because I was gonna say Sarah and I watched that last night before I went to sleep.
Yes.
Hocus
A
Pocus,
Halloween
and we're planning on watching
tradition.
Hocus Pocus tonight. Hocus Pocus 2 tonight. We're watching Hocus Pocus 2 tonight.
I feel like there's one of two movies everybody watches every year around this time. It's either that one or The Nightmare Before Christmas.
See, that's on my list too. I'm actually wearing my Jack Skellington lounger right now as we speak.
Very, very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, and also there's that grossly underrated anthology horror movie Trick or Treat.
Yes.
The little pumpkin-headed guy.
Yes.
Trick or Treat
That
is
is
so good.
It was so
a
good.
Halloween
Yes.
theme. I would put it out there with movies like VHS, where like every story is like disconnected from each other, maybe loosely tied,
Yeah.
but ultimately they're like different. It's like an anthology.
Now
But VHS is like a found footage anthology series.
there is a horror based band that I want to give credit to real quick. They're called
Yeah, let's talk about music while we still have time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of horror bands.
Code Orange. They did 2 theme songs for. They did the theme song for Bray Wyatt, one of my absolute all time favorite wrestlers. May he rest in peace. But Code Orange did the theme song for him when he debuted as the Fiend, which is one of his more popular horror based gimmicks. They did his theme song Let Me In, and
Okay.
when he came back from his from being released from his contract in 2021, he came back at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view last year in September, I think it was. No, it was October. And Code Orange wrote his theme song, Shatter. And that was a really good one,
Okay.
too.
I know it's. Oh, go ahead.
It was his gimmick for the Fiend was more horror focused than his gimmick was like when he came back, but the Fiend hands down has got to be my favorite gimmick that he has ever done.
Okay. I know it's cringe, and I don't listen to them anymore because my music tastes these days have basically changed to like instrumental relaxing music and Gorillaz. But I mean, technically, I would put some Gorillaz stuff, not the music itself, but their music videos in the horror genre.
Yeah.
Just because they're so focused on like the undead and deals with demons and shit like that. Like they had an album called Demon Days. It was about the war in Iraq, but still, you know. But I used to listen to ICP a lot when I was younger, and literally all of their songs were focused around plots of horror stories, like the boogeyman killing people. A guy who who was in love with a ghost, so ended up like murdering his neighbors to appease the ghost.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, and like toys that come to life and kill people. So that was, and they were literally like evil clowns was their whole setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one could argue that they started a cult.
Yeah,
So-
though they
Yeah.
sure the fuck did.
So yeah, they definitely fell. But you know, when I think of horror music, a lot of it takes me back to like when I was playing Twisted Metal back in the PS1 days, and a lot of the
Yes.
soundtracks would be songs by like Rob Zombie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie was actually a character in one of those games. A
Oh?
driver in one of them. Yeah, and the Saw soundtracks too had a lot of like Fear Factory did a song for the first one called "Bite the Hand That Bleeds."
Okay.
Horror and industrial metal in particular
Yeah.
go really well hand in hand.
Mushroomhead did a song for the sixth one for the soundtrack. I can't remember the name of it though, but the music video had like the carousel set up where all of them are sitting around the table and the camera's in the center of this carousel and it's going across all their faces. Yeah, I remember that, and then you had bands like Slipknot.
Yep. Slipknot.
And
Yep.
stuff like that. Always the different bands that would wear like the creepy mask. Korn.
Korn was another one. Okay, so I have to talk about the Stacked album Nightmare Reimagined. The soundtrack with all of the different bands that did covers of songs from the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh yeah, Marilyn Manson's on that one.
Yes, that has got.
Rise Against Making Christmas.
Mhm,
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I actually think Marilyn Manson has my favorite version of the song "Sweet Dreams" from the opening of the movie Gamer with Gerard Butler.
As I say, Marilyn Manson's "This Is Halloween" is my current default ringtone on my phone.
Yeah, that was a good
Nothing
one.
about Marilyn Manson has aged well. though.
No, it really hasn't.
No,
It really hasn't.
Or Ozzy Osbourne for that matter.
You're not wrong. Ozzy is
Yeah,
on his
no.
last leg.
They just haven't. But I know, Ryan, Karissa, you guys are probably more prone to what some of the more modern horror-themed bands are. So what are some of yours? What are your favorites? I know you mentioned Ice Nine Kills earlier.
Yeah, Ice Nine Kills is good.
Yeah, Ice Nine Kills.
Is that where it begins and ends?
I mean,
Basically.
there's a lot of bands that have a lot of kind of like graphic imagery or music videos or things like that. But Ice Nine
Like
Kills,
A Little Piece of Heaven by
is-
Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah. Ice Nine Kills really nails the theatrical aspect of it that I think that a lot of other bands don't try to touch on as much, though.
The one horror-based song that they did, I liked that they did like a parody of Stacy's mom and did basically made it Jason's mom. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Okay.
That was so good.
There is this one, actually, this rapper I listened to, very underground, called K Reno, who, he did a song one time where the premise of the song, I can't remember the name of it, I'd have to look it up, but the premise of it was very Saw-themed, where him and a bunch of other people woke up in a room and they were all being tested for their sins. And it was kind of like, there was like a message to the song, too, though, because it was all like cops and politicians and doctors and people like that in positions of power that were being tested, So that was an interesting one. I also think horror movie soundtracks too, a lot of them have a lot of horror themed people involved in them, because Charlie Closer from the Nine Inch Nails did a lot of the soundtrack for the Saw movies. He's the one behind the infamous Hello Zep theme, which plays during the twist at the end of every movie.
He also composed the music for a movie that came out, I think it was last year, Bones and All.
Okay, yeah, I keep hearing about that, and I haven't watched it yet, and I feel like I need to.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so, what would you say is one of your favorite soundtracks from a horror? It could be a horror movie or game, honestly, but just what you think, like a horror movie or game where the soundtrack really adds to the experience, really sells the atmosphere that they're going for. You know, and I know some of it's like very gimmicky, like a lot of horror things when they're trying to build tension, they just start playing the violins really fast in the background. You know, I'm not so much looking for that as I am looking for like examples of more like well done stuff, like using Tiny Tim's "Tiptoe Through the Tulips" for Insidious. I think, is a good example.
Yeah.
That's just an example of a non-horror song in a horror setting that makes it more creepy.
Yeah.
You know,
I haven't the foggiest clue.
Yeah, I'm stuck on this one.
I
I
have
take it that the soundtracks probably aren't the first thing that stand out to you guys when you watch a horror movie. Then
I do have another
Not
artist.
necessarily.
I have another artist.
there are some iconic themes, though. Like I said, there's the Saw theme, but then Halloween
Jaws.
has its own theme. Jaws,
Jaws,
has a theme.
yeah, Jaws.
You know,
I have
So
to agree
stuff
with
like-
that.
but what's your other artist?
Skits Craven. He did a song that I found. I found out about Skits Craven through TikTok actually, and there was this song that he wrote called "Bad Temper,"
Okay.
and on the cover art it looks like the Hulk's eye in like a picture frame, but it's very very dark.
Okay.
But it's Skits Craven Bad Temper. If you ever get the chance to check it out. It's decent. I haven't listened to any of his other stuff, but based on what I am seeing on like his albums, he seems to be like a pretty dark artist altogether. So I'm definitely gonna have to check the rest of his stuff out. But Skits Craven, Bad Temper is very very dark and I would argue that it's horror based.
I just remembered, by the way, "Cleansing Room" is the name of that K Reno song I was thinking of earlier, a little
Okay.
bit ago, where they all like wake up and they get tested. It's called "The Cleansing Room." Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I'd put in there. Okay, well, before we wrap up, does anybody have anything else horror related they would like to bring up, give a mention? That's not like in the categories we already spoke of. Maybe there's like a podcast or a YouTube channel that specializes in this area that you'd like.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because there is a podcast that I want to give a shout out to, and thanks to my lovely girlfriend Sarah for introducing me to it. It does involve murder. It's a true crime comedy podcast called Small Town Murder.
Okay.
And it's these two guys just their disclosure is, yes, we make fun of the towns, we make fun of the scenario, but we don't make fun of the victims or the victims' families. We're assholes, but we're not scumbags. It's actually it's really interesting. It's really funny too. And they come up with some of the most unique names for their podcast episodes. It's hilarious.
In that vein, I will also, because we talked about Dead Meat already earlier, so I also want to recommend one called the last podcast on the left.
The last
I love
podcast.
Last
Okay,
Podcast on the
Yeah,
podcast.
they
on the
also
left.
fall
Okay.
under that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a group of guys that they talk very similarly to what you're saying about like real life situations and stuff like that, but they also go over like short stories. They did a whole episode one time dedicated to cryptids.
Okay.
Like
Mothman.
Yeah, they do that.
yeah, like the cryptids, like like the creepypasta creatures that the internet creates.
Slender Man.
Yeah, Slender Man, stuff like that. The Rake.
They did one on Mothman not too long
Yep,
ago.
Mothman.
Like they redid
Okay.
Mothman.
Yep. Yeah, so they have those kind of things. I think they also did. There's also an entire YouTube channel that I watched that's a spin-off of the Infographics channel where they go into every single creature in the SCP Foundation and files.
Okay.
Which is like an internet-based horror phenomenon, SCP, where they it's about like a secret research government facility where they keep a bunch of monsters and otherworldly beings and creatures trapped. The video game Control is actually very loosely based around it.
Okay.
But they do it with like inanimate objects that have different powers, but the actual SCP Foundation has different creatures of varying degrees of like horrifying and dangerous that they keep trapped down there.
Yeah.
This YouTube channel is dedicated to going through the whole thing. Another internet phenomenon that in the horror department that got popular recently is called the Backrooms, which is like this very well designed found footage type thing where the idea is that you basically no clip like a video game character into this alternate reality where you're trapped in this like basically yellow looking infinite office building where the floor is wet and gross and like there's something possibly chasing you the whole time. And it just gets deeper and deeper the more you go down the rabbit hole with that. So I also recommend looking into the Backrooms. There are actually, I think Dead Meat actually did an episode talking about the Backrooms and going through the whole story that was available up to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think they're done. The Backrooms is done now, but there is a YouTube channel where you can watch all the videos, and they do such a good job at making it look like old VHS footage.
Nice.
How they put it together, I will never understand, but it's very, very well done. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I put those things up there, and, you know, maybe if you want some other fucked up experiences, watch Happy Tree Friends.
I love Happy Tree Friends!
But do our guests have anything else they want to add to that?
Twilight.
Sure. Yeah, everyone watch the Twilight movies. That's the thing.
I think the true, real, most terrifying thing in the world right now would hands down have to go to current modern day radio country music. Like you can't escape it, and that is terrifying.
The algorithm. I actually feel lucky that I haven't actually unwillingly heard a country song in a long time.
Me either, but knowing that they're out there lurking just around the corner, it's terrifying.
Yes. Okay. Well, with that well-intentioned warning put out there for everyone, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. So that was a very well done and deep discussion about all things horror. Thank you so much to our guests for joining us for this episode. I'm glad we were finally able to get it all synced up. So, as always, if you let me know in the comments down below if you're watching this on YouTube about some of your favorite horror stuff in different genres, movies, games, TV shows, whatever it is, whatever you like. And click that like button if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, you can follow. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and yada yada, so on and so forth. You can also send me an email at mroversoul53@gmail.com, mroversoul53@gmail.com. Follow me at the website formerly known as Twitter at oversoul53. Once again, I have been your host, Justin, aka Oversoul. And Nick?
You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter, at The Vaping Fiend, TikTok, the.vaping.fiend, and I don't use Twitch all that often, but I'm The Vaping Fiend on there as well, and I have been your co-host, Nick, aka The Vaping Fiend.
And do our guests have any socials they'd like to plug?
I technically have an X account by the name of RMK Buried Alive, but I'm not going to be probably using that for very much longer. So you can find me. I have a Facebook page, Buried Alive Gaming. I haven't been active on it in forever, but I do want to start streaming again at some point in the near future, and I normally do that on Twitch at RMK Buried Alive. But I'm sure that you will see more of me right here on the Oversoul Gaming platform in the near future, too.
Okay.
Yes, one of these days we're going to have you back in a Let's Play, you and Dylan, hopefully. And you have anything, Karissa?
No.
Don't find her.
Okay, fair enough.
All I do is lurk.
All right.
There's no point in following me. I don't post anything.
She hasn't updated
Alright,
her
well.
profile picture in 7 years.
That is true.
Once again, our guests have been my sister Karissa, brother-in-law Ryan, who you know on YouTube as Rayquaza, and Twitch as RMK Buried Alive. Thanks again to everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Happy Halloween, stay safe out there, and we'll catch you in the next one. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.